Hello, how's it going, guys? This is CRP speaking to you live on weekly webinar number 67, Investing in Diamonds and Precious Metals. And today, I'm not going to be wearing my baseball cap because it's fucking hot. It's really goddamn hot, okay? And so, yeah, no baseball cap today. You know, just my balding head. As you can see, I'm losing hair like a son of a bitch. What can I say? You know, you get older, and that's how things go. Of course, we are having this webinar today, July 12th, which is actually my maternal grandmother's birthday. Well, she passed away some time ago. But anyway, it's today, Monday, July 12th, because on Sunday, July 11th, I had a live stream with 4 up-and-coming YouTubers that, you know, you can find it on Patreon and you can find it on my main channel. I actually set it up so that people on Patreon could hop on the live stream and ask questions directly of my of the participants. But nobody took me up on the offer, oddly enough, because I posted the link on the webinar on the Patreon version of the live stream, and nobody took me up on the offer, which was a bit disappointing. But anyway, it's your choice. If you guys don't want to hop on, that's perfectly fine. Anyway, today, this is just, of course, for webinar tier supporters. And I'm going to be talking about investing in diamonds and precious metals. Whenever there is an economic situation that a period of instability, or when people perceive that things are going to go south in the not too distant future, diamonds and precious metals always come up on the agenda. Because when things are going good, nobody's thinking about diamonds, nobody's thinking about precious metals, except the die-hard gold crowd, right? In the investment community in Wall Street, they're called the hard metal crowd. They're also called gold bugs sometimes, dismissively. And investing in gold has its pros and cons. Investing in precious metals has its pros and cons, as well as with diamonds. And so I'm going to be discussing this in some detail. Now, originally, this was going to be just a regular video for Patreon. But what happened was that I did one version of it. And when I finished, I realized that my cameras had snapped off because they only record half an hour of material. And I'd gone way beyond that. And so I recorded a second version trying to keep it short. And once again, it snapped off. And I hadn't even covered half the ground that I wanted to. And so I realized, hey, this topic is for a full-on webinar. And so here you go. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to step out so far as my image, because you guys don't really need to see me for this presentation. And yeah. Oh, some people say that I see a black screen. All you have to do is just refresh. Al Fakir fan says all you need to do is refresh. I mean, I'm telling you, all you need to do is refresh, and that way you'll see it. You should be seeing it. I'm checking it now, and yeah, it works properly. So you shouldn't have any problem. Anyway, let's get cracking. Okay. So investing in diamonds and precious metals. The first thing you have to understand is that when you invest, investing is all about earning money over time from the asset. That's the whole point of it. Remember, there are two things. There is trading and there is investing. Trading is buying something at one price and selling it later in the future at some point, hopefully at a higher price. That's trading. Investing is buying something and expecting it to produce an income over time. That's investing. A typical example of a trade. You know, I buy, for instance, a baseball trading card today for $100, and I am hoping that next year or in 10 years I'll sell it for $1,000. Say, I'm just giving a hypothetical. That's an example of a trade. A trade can be in any asset class. It can be bonds, it can be land, it can be stocks, it can be precious metals, diamonds, anything. You can trade anything. And ultimately, in everything that you trade, the expectation is that you're buying it cheap today to sell it dear tomorrow. That's the whole point of a trade. Investing is when you buy something with the expectation that the thing that you buy will produce an income for you over time. An example, a very simple and straightforward example. Suppose you purchase a rental property, say a small efficiency apartment. near a college or a university. And what's your expectation? That you're going to rent it out to some student and that he's going to be paying you rent every month. That's the idea of that particular investment. You expect the money that you put into the apartment will pay you back a little bit every month or every semester or every year, however is the period of the investment, over time. Ultimately, you expect to earn more money from the investment than you actually paid for the investment. That's the whole point of it, of course, right? So that's the difference between an investment and a trade. You do not earn money holding diamonds or gold over time. Ergo, diamonds and precious metals are not an investment. They are ultimately a trade. You got to keep that in mind. Now, there are such things as non-income producing assets. I call them inert assets. Okay, inert assets doesn't exist in the economic terminology. When people talk about such assets that do not produce income, they call them non-income producing assets, right? I call it inert assets, and I will be calling it inert assets for the rest of this presentation just to make it easier. Now, an inert asset, like the name says, doesn't produce an income over time. What's an example of an inert asset? For instance, a piece of land, just fallow land, wherever, you know, it's just sitting there wherever. It's not producing anything. And of course, this isn't like farmland. It's just a piece of land that you own that doesn't produce any income. That's an inert asset. It doesn't do anything for you. You bought it and it's just sitting there. Perhaps you have the expectation that later on you'll be able to sell it for a higher price. But when you purchase it, you're not thinking of that possibility. You're just putting money into it as a place to store value. Now, inert assets are not true commodities. Let me rephrase that. True commodities are not inert assets, because true commodities, I'm talking industrial commodities or agricultural commodities. I'm talking copper, I'm talking aluminum, I'm talking electricity, I'm talking soybeans, I'm talking anything you can eat, anything that you can use in an economic activity. Those commodities are not inert assets, okay? Because by definition, they are being consumed. Any investment, quote unquote, in a commodity is not really an investment, it's a trade. When you buy a commodity, any commodity that is consumable, that is by definition going to be a trade. You're expecting to sell it later on for a higher price than you bought it today. Of course, you can purchase derivatives, like for instance, selling a commodity short, but it's the same principle. You're buying a contract with the expectation that later you will sell that contract, the short contract, you will sell it at a higher price later on, okay? The contract, of course, it's derived from the price of the commodity, and if the price of the commodity goes down, when you, for instance, sell something short, your short position will rise in value. See, okay. A true commodity, be it an agricultural or industrial commodity, is always a trade. Things that are true inert assets are collectibles and precious metals. Now let me explain. Let me explain what an inert asset is. An inert asset either stores value over time or it is a very long-term trade. I'll give you a specific example. Years ago, back in 2002, I purchased a piece of land in Chile. It was roughly half an acre. And wait, half an acre, 5,000 square meters? Yeah, I think that 5,000 square meters is half an acre. I think, or it could be wrong, it doesn't matter. I purchased 5,000, oh, it's a quarter of an acre. I purchased 5,000 square meters at a very reasonable price, something like, at the time, like $30,000. And I just sat on it. And every year I had to pay the property tax. This was fallow land in a future subdivision. And I sat on that land, and every year I'd pay, I think it was like roughly 0.75% of the price of the purchase price. And I paid that for about 10 years. So ultimately, I wound up paying an additional 7-8% of the purchase price, which was like $30,000, like I said. And by the time I wound up selling it, I sold it for almost 5 times its original purchase price. Because by that time, that piece of land There was a lot of building going on around it. That subdivided development, which had been subdivided insanely early, I thought, at the time that I bought it. Yeah, well, 10 years later, in 2012, 2013 or so, yeah, it was booming. And so I sold it, and I made myself a tidy sum of money. It was a great little investment, you know. And see, in that case, what it was a long-term trade. Okay, and that's what I was thinking. Now, suppose, just for the sake of argument, that back in 2002, I'd been thinking that, you know something, the Chilean peso is going to go down the tubes. I better get rid of my Chilean pesos and invest it in some store of value. Ha, there's this piece of land. I'm going to buy this piece of land, and with my pesos, spend all of my pesos and plow them all into this bit of land, these 5,000 square meters. 5,000 square meters, for those of you who don't know, is roughly 50,000 square feet. I'm going to buy these 5,000 square meters, and this will be a store of value. So you see what's going on. If it's a store of value or a long-term trade, I thought to myself, man, this shit is cheap, and this area of Santiago is going to be booming in a few years. Not right now, but in a few years, it'll be booming. So I might as well just throw my money at this thing and consider it a long-term trade. I.e., I was thinking that things were going to be better into the future. So you see, either way, as a store of value or a long-term trade, investing in an inert asset is speculative. You don't do it when you expect things to be steady as she goes. You do it because you want to store value because you think that tomorrow is going to be worse than today, or because you think that tomorrow is going to be much better than today, and so you want to get in on the upswing. You understand? It's very important to understand the motivation of anything that you're getting into, any asset class. You have to know why you're getting into it. That way you can avoid any pitfalls. You can think through why you're investing in any position or any asset, okay? Okay, so like I said before, non-income producing assets are essentially two: collectibles or precious metals. Now, in the questions, in the question section of the post, when I said that I was going to be doing this presentation, there were a lot of people, a couple of people asked about watches and collector stuff, collectibles. Watches, cars, sports memorabilia, all of these are collectibles, okay? Anything that you can trade that depends on what other people think in a particular niche, that's collectible, okay? Because remember, these goods, watches, cars, wines, you know, expensive cigars, all of these collectibles, they might be consumable, like wine, for instance. They might not, like a watch. But either way, they have a niche value. It's not a universal value. You know, you show me some watch, and I say, oh, that's very nice. You know, my Casio just looks just like it. I paid, you know, $20 for my Casio. And the watch connoisseur will like look at me with daggers in his eyes and say, no, this is not a Casio. This is a blah, 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 blah. I don't know anything about watches, and I could care less, really. But you see, for him, it's a big deal. I look at a watch, and I'm like, oh, it's a very pretty watch. At one time, I remember I went to a store in Zermatt. I go to Zermatt just about every year to ski. And I was there one time, and there was this beautiful watch I saw, and it was a IWC Portofino. I remember the model very clearly, and I thought it was beautiful, and it looked identical to the airport watch that I'd bought recently. I'd paid like about $100, $120 if I recall correctly, for this El Cheapo watch. In fact, I happen to have it here. I should have brought it out. But anyway, the point is I couldn't tell the difference between this incredibly expensive watch, which was like, it was like $4,000 or $5,000, and my own cheapy watch. I couldn't, yes, of course I could tell the difference, you know, but not really. At a glance, no, they looked exactly the same. But somebody who's a connoisseur would know, and therefore it's niche. It's very important to understand that. Collectibles are only valuable to people who are in that particular niche market. They are not of universal value. Consider Tom Brady's rookie trading card. I mean, I read this a few weeks ago and I was shocked by it, and I remember it, and that's why I'm bringing it up. You see, Tom Brady, for those of you who don't know, is an American football player. He's a quarterback. He's a very successful man. He's won like 7 or 8 Super Bowls. I mean, he's a very, very capable athlete. Good on him, you know. And when he was a rookie, they issued a trading card. For those of you who aren't American, a trading card is a little bit of cardboard. It's a small little thing about 6, 7 centimeters tall, maybe 4 centimeters wide, that has a picture of the athlete and his name. And on the flip side, it has all his athletic statistics. Now, these trading cards, of course, for a rookie, for his first year player, Tom Brady at the time was just another rookie player, just no big deal. Of course, over the years, over the decades, he's become a huge superstar. And so Tom Brady's rookie trading card sold at auction for $3.1 million. Not kidding. I mean, a trivial little trading card of really, I mean, what is the actual value? It's not even a penny, okay? It's just a little bit of cardboard, of thin cardboard, with on one side printed slick, you know, so that you could see the color photograph, and on the other, it's rough-hewn cardboard so you can see the printed statistics. It's of no value in and of itself, but of course somebody thought it was valuable enough to pay $3.1 million for the fucking thing. That's niche value, and that's the danger with all collectibles. A lot of people say, oh, I have this collection of I don't know, McDonald's glasses or fine wines or whatever the fuck. And they think it's valuable. No, it's not valuable. It's only valuable to somebody else who thinks it's valuable. And that somebody else is a very small universe of people. You have to be very careful about that. See? Now, diamonds are a collectible. Don't kid yourself. Diamonds are universally esteemed. Yeah, people everywhere around the world think that they're beautiful. Yes, because they are beautiful. But not everybody in the world values them. That's the key issue. Like a collectible, like a watch, like a trading card, diamonds are only valuable to a small niche. People think that they're pretty. Yes, you show off a diamond ring to somebody and they're going to be like, ooh, it's so pretty. But who would actually pay money for that is a very, very small group of people. Okay? Number one. Number two, diamond prices are not set by supply and demand. They are not set by a market. They're set by De Beers. And let me give you a little explanation about De Beers. You see, diamonds for centuries were very hard to come by. In Asia and Europe, there weren't a hell of a lot of diamonds lying around. There were very few, if any, diamond mines, and they were quickly exhausted. Diamonds were universally prized. And they were used, of course, in the crowns of heads of state and whatnot as expensive baubles, you know, because diamonds, if you ever see a diamond in the rough, it's just like a piece of broken glass, right? It's just a crystal. And it's usually just lying around. And you pick it up, and it looks unique and different. And of course, if you have the craft, you can cleave it with a diamond cutter, and it brings out the clarity and beauty of the diamond. And the diamond is very, very pretty. And for many centuries, in fact, many millennia, they were exceedingly rare until the 19th century. And in the 19th century, explorers got to, well, earlier than that, they had gotten to Africa. But in the 19th century, they explored Namibia and South Africa. And they discovered diamonds. A lot of fucking diamonds. I mean, an extraordinary amount of diamonds. In Namibian beaches, for instance, you could walk down the beach, scoop up a handful of sand, and you brush aside the sand, and all of a sudden you're looking at like at least half a dozen diamonds in your hand, just from scooping up a random bit of sand on a beach in Namibia. And the same thing in South Africa. And in short order, during the 19th century, they mined all of those easily accessible diamonds. And they started looking for more and more diamonds. And what happened, of course? Well, all of a sudden, the market became flooded with diamonds. Yeah, because diamonds, which had once been exceedingly rare, became quite common. Because all of a sudden, from all around the world, that everybody thought that diamonds were so pretty and they were so rare. But here in Africa, you find all of these diamonds. and they started selling these diamonds. And very quickly, the market became depressed in diamonds. The price of diamonds became depressed, rather, because there were so many diamonds in the market. That's when De Beers arrived or flourished. De Beers originally was just a consortium of large diamond dealers that realized what was happening and wanted to prevent it. And so they essentially established a monopoly that set diamond prices. And they were very strict about it. And they also came up with the idea of the diamond engagement ring to soak up all of these extra diamonds. And soon enough, what happened was that all the excess diamonds that were mined in Namibia and South Africa, and to a lesser extent in Zimbabwe, they started being stored in large warehouses in Amsterdam, in London, in South Africa, in New York. They started being stored and released very carefully and slowly, because up to this day, diamonds are produced and at a factory level. But the thing is, see, their supply is controlled by De Beers. Diamonds are controlled by a monopolist. Their price is controlled by a monopolist. If that monopolist were ever to go under or be broken somehow, say, for instance, by the Chinese, that's it. The price of diamonds would tank, because there would be so many diamonds out in the market. See? Because it's a false scarcity. That's what's been going on. Another problem that's been going on too is that fewer and fewer people are willing to buy the big diamond ring, because fewer and fewer people are getting married. And the other problem is, why would China, of all countries, be interested in breaking the diamond monopoly? Well, because a lot of Chinese have the expectation that when they get married, the woman wants to have a diamond ring. But it's so outside their price range that China might potentially do something to break the De Beers monopoly, so as to pacify all these Chinese people who want diamond wedding rings, diamond engagement rings. Now, it sounds stupid, but you have to keep in mind, these are hundreds of millions of people who want a fucking diamond. Okay? And that's a lot of goddamn money going out the window. Do the Chinese want a monopolist like De Beers to get the money from, say, not even 100 million, say it was only 20 million diamond rings? 20 million diamond rings, if you average out at least $1,000 a pop, you're talking $20 billion. That's a hell of a lot of fucking money. Do you think the Chinese would really want that to happen? Or do you think that they might say to themselves, well, we could figure out a way to break the diamond monopoly and keep all that money for ourselves somehow? I don't know how they do it. That's not the issue of this presentation. The point of this presentation is that to highlight how De Beers, the world monopolist in diamonds, is potentially very vulnerable. And so if you were to invest in diamonds, well, it might be a good trade. It might be a very bad trade. It might be a good short-term trade over the next year, 5 years, but it could potentially be a catastrophic investment if you're thinking of a store of value. Because we have this notion of, like, from the movies, of people with like these little velvet sacks of diamonds, and that they're so valuable. Well, first of all, that's not quite true. Very large diamonds are exceedingly valuable, but any diamond that is the size of your pinky, the last knuckle of your pinky or smaller, they're not that expensive. They are expensive, sure, several $1,000s, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, but a little satchel of diamonds that are smaller than your than the nail of your pinky, say, consider that in terms of size. A small satchel of such diamonds is not a lot of money. Not a lot of money, I mean less than $100,000. To have like a lot of money, like $1 million, you need a lot of fucking diamonds. And quite frankly, $1 million is not a hell of a lot of money. So in terms of moving diamonds, it would not be particularly easy. On top of that, if you move diamonds and you're caught at like an airport or someplace like that, they can confiscate those diamonds. And it can happen. Of course, diamonds are not detected by metal detectors and whatnot, but where are you going to put all these diamonds? On your person? Yeah, it's not particularly easy to move these diamonds around like in the movies, okay? In the movies, it's like, oh, a little satchel of diamonds is like $1 billion, but in reality, that's not the case. In reality, to have $1 million, you'd have to have a fairly large suitcase full of diamonds. And that would not be particularly easy to move around unless you really know what you're doing, unless you're allied with some sort of criminal element. And of course, in that circumstance, you'd likely be robbed. So it's diamonds, they sound great, but they're really not, either in terms of a long-term store of value or a long-term trade. In terms of a short-term trade, a speculative trade, oh, sure, they're great. I mean, there are whole industries in Amsterdam and New York, whole markets of diamond trading. And these traders, they make money off of trading diamonds, but it's always short trading, buy, sell every day. And that kind of trading, sure, no problem. Diamonds are like any other commodity, like, say, oil or natural gas or whatever the hell. But in terms of the reason you would go into an inert asset as a long-term store of value or a long-term trade, because you're thinking either things are going to go tits up in the short term or medium term, or things are going to be roses in the medium term, long term. Either way, diamonds are not a particularly good store of value because you don't know where the price of diamonds are going to be in 10, 20, 30 years. You really don't. I mean, they're pretty, no question about it. But as an investment, as a long-term store of value or a long-term trade, I mean, collectibles, including diamonds, are great as short to medium-term trades. Or a long-term investment when the entry price is low. But diamonds, by definition, do not have a low entry price. No, because the market is very mature. It's been around for over 100 years, close to 200 years. So the entry level for diamonds is quite high. So it's never going to be a good long-term investment. A good long-term investment in a collectible is something that costs you practically nothing today and might have a huge value tomorrow. That's why so many people buy, for instance, comic books and athletes trading cards, like the aforementioned Tom Brady's trading card. Yeah, because if you go and buy all the rookie trading cards for all of this year's rookies in the NFL or Major League Baseball or whatever, you buy them all. You might spend, say, $1,000. I wouldn't know, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it's $1,000. I would bet that it's actually probably less because there are only a few hundred players every year. So I think it's maybe in Major League Baseball, it might be a couple of hundred. Chat, help me out here. How many people that might be? But you see the point. It's not going to be an expensive trade. So if you were to, like, say, over the next 20 years, spend $1,000 every year buying all the rookie trading cards of Major League Baseball. And 20 years from now, it turns out that one of these guys, of these rookies, became a huge superstar in his trading card. You can sell it for $50,000. Well, then it was a good investment. You spent over 20 years, you spent 20 grand, and you wound up selling the one winning card for 50 grand. You made 30 grand. Good investment, good trade. But you see my point. See, a collectible is only really a good investment when it's very cheap to get into the trade, and you have a very, very long time window with an exceptional potential return on the investment. I mean, it's the same as buying a lottery ticket. That's what I'm basically saying. Okay, so you would have to understand that it's not a collectible in general. It's just not a particularly good either store of value or long-term trade. Okay, if you think about it, as I've sort of like outlined here in this presentation, a collectible is just not. No. Yeah. I mean, see, there is always the exception. You buy some expensive Rolex, right? And it could be that you happen to have purchased a Rolex that became exceedingly expensive 10, 20, 30 years from now. But more likely than not, that's not going to be the case. More likely than not, that the Rolex that you paid, say, $10,000 for today is going to be worth roughly the equivalent of $10,000 in 10 years' time. Adjusted for inflation and any other circumstance that might happen, it'll be roughly probably the same, if not less. Yeah, that's likely to happen unless something like a meteor hits the Rolex factory and there are no more Rolexes being produced. Well, then, yeah, sure, because it's a scarce collectible. But barring that, Yeah, collectibles are just not worth it, and that includes diamonds. And diamonds in particular are a horrible investment because if there was a straight market in diamonds, a diamond that sells today for $1,000 would probably be worth 50, maybe $100. I mean, that's how inflated the price of diamonds is. I mean, the amount of diamonds that are being created, that are being made, manufactured every year. I'm talking natural diamonds, diamonds that are being mined and cut. It far surpasses the yearly demand. They have huge warehouses with diamonds. They're just sitting there. See? And they have to keep on mining the diamonds. They don't stop because of economies of scale and marginal utility. If they stop the diamond mining, it would be such an expense to restart the mining operation in, say, 5-10 years, that it's worth it to just keep on mining and bank all the excess diamonds that are mined and cut. That's why De Beers does this, okay? And if De Beers ever goes tits up, which eventually it will, because every institution eventually goes tits up, that's inevitable. Well, once it goes tits up, then, your investment in diamonds as a store of value, well, it goes tits up with De Beers. Simple as that. So collectibles are a terrible hedge against long-term downturn. They are the first to lose money when the economy goes tits up. That's something else I forgot. Yeah. You see, any collectible, not just diamonds, but like baseball cards or expensive cars or watches or wines or whatever the fuck. Collectibles, if the economy in general goes down the toilet, collectibles go down the toilet with it. Okay? That's why a collectible of any sort is a terrible long-term investment if you expect things to go south. I mean, let me give you an example. See, a Marshall amplifier. You guys know that I used to play guitar, when I was in high school, typical, and a Marshall amp, the old, not the transistor one, but the one with tubes, right? Well, those Marshall amps during the 70s and 80s, when I was growing up, those amps that had been made in the 50s and 60s, they were selling them. They were trying to give them away. They'd sell them for $20. A 1,000 watt amp, you could easily get it for $50. Not kidding. Like in 1980, 82, I remember I saw those fucking amps. There were these shops with stacks and stacks of these amps, vintage amps from the 50s and 60s. And they were all tube amps. And they were just giving them away. Just take them. And they worked, okay? They weren't garbage, okay? What they do is a lot of these tubes had blown out. So they take one of the amps and just cannibalize it for parts, basically for the tubes, and put them in the ones that looked okay, and sell those and sell them for $50, $100 maximum. Okay, you could get a 1,000 amp Marshall stack with a head for $100, like a 1958 vintage. Now today, those same amps, you can't get any of those amps for under $5,000. See. But why is that the case? Is it because people didn't value them at the time? They didn't. They didn't value them at the time, and there was much less disposable income back in that day, and so people didn't find them that valuable. They weren't willing to invest their money into it. Whereas today, people recognize the value of the sound of those amps, number one, and number two, they have more income, more money to invest in different asset classes, in different collectibles. Things are going well or have been going well over the last few years. They're going south now, but that's for another webinar. And so they're willing to spend that kind of excessive money on a fucking amp. Yeah, that's what's going on, you see? Collectibles, they only accrue value when things are going well. When things are going badly, collectibles are the first to go down because collectibles, by definition, are luxuries. They are not necessary. And if something is not necessary and you need money, what do? You sell it. You sell it. A quick parenthesis to highlight this particular point. See, when the economy goes really tits up, okay, when things are going really shitty, do you know how you realize that things are going really shitty? You go to the equivalent of Craigslist or the for sale ads, right? Wherever you might happen to be, and you look at jet skis and power boats, you look at those toys like motorcycles, like those little sports cars that are weekend runabouts, the toys that people have. Those are the things that people start selling when they're unemployed and they need cash. And those things go down in value like precipitously. I'm talking jet skis, power boats, yachts, that kind of thing. Those things that are not necessarily. I mean, like, you got a sailing yacht down at the marina, right? Do you need it? Fuck no. You got a house, you got an apartment, whatever the fuck. The boat down at the marina, that's a luxury. And the marina is charging you, I don't know, $300 a month for the slip. For the slip, that's the docking area of the boat, right? It's charging you 300, between 100 and 500 bucks a month for the slip, depending on the size of your boat and the location of the marina, right? And so it's money out of pocket. And on top of that, the money that you've sunk into the fucking boat, which on top of that has depreciated since you bought it. And all of a sudden you're unemployed. So what the fuck you do? Maybe you bought the boat for $50,000 and it's a used boat now because you've had it for a few years and you really haven't taken that good care of it because taking care of it costs money. And now you figure that at best you could get maybe 30 grand, right? But you're unemployed. So what do? You want to sell this fucking boat. Well, you go up on Craigslist, you put the pictures of the boat, the prettiest pictures that you can find. And do you ask for 30 grand? Fuck no. You ask for 25, of course, because you want to make a quick sale. And if everybody has the same fucking idea, you start looking around at the other ads and you realize, holy shit, they're all selling more or less the same boat as I am for 25 grand. And I need the fucking cash. I'm going to bite the fucking bullet. I'm going to sell it for 20. And that's what happens. Collectibles, luxury goods of whatever sort, be it luxury handbags or expensive wines or boats or jet skis or any shit like that, they all deflate in price. The used ones, of course, they all deflate in price. Collectibles go down the tubes because in an economic downturn, people need fucking money. It's as simple as that. And so people are willing to part with their boat for 40% of what they bought it for, so long as they get fucking cash in hand, cash which they desperately need now. So you see the problem with investing in collectibles. The discussion here started with the issue of diamonds, but this issue is not just diamonds, it is across the board. All collectibles, they act exactly the same way. When things go south, all those collectibles, diamonds, expensive wines, jet skis, little convertible runabouts that you have for the weekends, right? Classic cars and shit like that. They all go down in price because people need the fucking cash. Okay? That's why collectibles are a horrible hedge against a long-term downturn. And that includes watches, by the way. Somebody asked me about watches. I'm telling you right now. Watches, I mean, look, luxury goods, by definition, it's not an investment. It's just a little bauble that you buy to amuse yourself. I know guys who have like 30 fucking watches, and the cheapest one is like $5,000. And they a couple that have all these complications, they call it, right? Which is just, they're just fucking baubles, right? And these fuckers have paid over 100 grand for these fucking watches. Yeah, they're never going to sell that shit. Nobody's ever going to pay that kind of money, especially not enough fucking economic downturn. No, are you insane? Now imagine all these married people in a serious economic downturn. And these married people, the wife, she's got like a fucking, diamond ring, right? And what's that canard that was invented by De Beers to goose the demand for diamonds? Diamonds are forever, and you should spend at least 3 months' salary on a fucking diamond ring. I mean, that's the biggest bullshit ever, but it convinced a whole boatload of the fucking sheeple, and they plopped down 3 months' salary for a fucking ring that is perfectly useless. I mean, it's pretty, but it's useless, right? I mean, shit, it's not even a fucking party, because, I mean, if you spent that money on a party, well, at least you had a good time, you know what I'm saying? But on a fucking rock, you spent a quarter of your year's salary on a fucking ring? For what purpose other than to make De Beers rich? No purpose at all. Anyway, if you were dumb enough to do that, and there's an economic downturn, and you and the wife say, look, we need money, and, dear, it's a beautiful diamond ring, but we got to sell that fucking thing. Everybody's going to have the same fucking idea. They're all going to be thinking about selling the fucking diamond ring. Yeah. And what happens if all these people all of a sudden go on the market? De Beers, with its aim to maintain prices, might make the effort and buy diamonds initially. But if there's enough of a run on diamonds, De Beers doesn't say, fuck that. We're just going to have to wait and see how the market plays out with these all these diamonds that are up for sale from all these people who need cash. And there goes the diamond market, and your investment in this hedge, this store, long-term store of value that is a diamond, it goes up in smoke, man. Simple as that. You understand. You have to understand collectibles, including diamonds. They are a horrible investment if things go tits up. And that's the whole point of this conversation. I mean, you all are listening to me, not because you think that things are going to be hunky-dory over the next few years, because you think that things are going to go tits up in a really fucking bad way over the next few years. I'm telling you, a collectible, a horrible fucking investment. Okay? Okay, enough with collectibles. Now, let's move on to precious metals. Silver, gold, platinum. Those are the only ones I'm going to talk about. There are a whole bunch of different precious metals, palladium and whatnot, and some exotic ones too that I'm really not familiar with at all, but I know that I'm aware that they exist, okay? Now, all precious metals share two principal problems. Number one is the bulk. See, a precious metal, it's bulky. It's a physical thing, okay? Now, 1,000 ounces, 1,000-ounce bar of silver, they sell them in 1,000-ounce bars, okay? That's 62 pounds. For those of you who don't know pounds, that's roughly 30 kilos, 28 kilos. 62 fucking pounds, 28 fucking kilos. And how much money is it? Well, one troy ounce is currently priced at about 26 bucks per troy ounce. So 1,000 ounces is quite naturally $26,000. I mean, I don't mean to be an asshole or sound like a dick, but 26 grand is not a lot of money. It's not. 26 grand is less than the price of a car. And that's 1,000 ounces, 62 pounds of solid silver. Okay? Suppose you have a nest egg of $250,000. Between here and there, that and the other, you've put together a little stash of $250,000, $250,000. You would need roughly 10 of these bars, 10,000 ounces, i.e., 620 pounds, or put another way, 280 kilograms of silver. Where would you put that? I mean, think about it. Think how much that is. Yeah, I mean, you'd barely be able to move one fucking 1,000-ounce bar. I mean, it's 62 kilos. It's close to 62 pounds, rather. It's close to 30 kilos. That's a lot of weight, okay? A grown man, he'd be able to move it, but he'd have a bit of a hard time. If you're a woman or not particularly strong, and I'm, no judgment, yeah, you could be an older guy like me. I'm 53. Do I want to be, hoisting, 30 kilos of some fucking silver? No. 300 kilos of silver for $250,000? No. Where the fuck would I put it? Where would I put it? Now, with gold, you have less of a problem because the valuation is greater. Gold is typically sold in bars of 400 or 420 ounces. For the sake of this conversation, let's assume it's just a 400-ounce bar, 400 troy ounces, which is slightly different from the imperial ounce. So 400 troy ounces weighs roughly 27 pounds. 27 pounds is roughly 12, 13 kilos. And that's $720,000. That's a lot of money for just one little brick of gold. So yeah, there's less of a problem with the bulk of gold, okay? And right now, platinum is trading at a mere fraction of gold. So what goes for gold goes for platinum. It's not that much of a weight for a lot of store of value. Of course, if you have more than $1 million, all of a sudden it does become a serious problem in terms of bulk. But even with just a single brick of gold, just one brick of gold, 400 ounces, how would you move that? I'm not talking like in a city. I'm talking like traveling. You want to travel, get on a plane and go wherever. You're going to put it in your backpack and just hop on the plane? I mean, they're going to look at it and say, sir, what are you doing with this? And what, you think you're going to be able to say, oh, no, it's not really gold. It's just a prop. Fuck you. They're going to look at it really fucking carefully, right? And it's going to be no trick at all to assay it on the spot and realize it's real gold. And they're not going to let you travel with it. On the contrary, they'll confiscate it and probably arrest you for money laundering or whatever the fuck, because authorities are very suspicious when people are walking around with close to $750,000 worth of gold in a fucking backpack. You see the problem. Traveling with that money, moving it around from place to place, it's a fucking nightmare, okay? There's the bulk of it, okay? I mean, like I said, silver, the problem is storage. Like, it's not that much money. 26 grand for 1,000 ounces, you know? I mean, you have only $250,000. All of that's translated into 300 kilos. Try storing 300 kilos of anything in your house. No matter how big it is, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare, okay? No matter how big your house, 300 kilos of anything. I mean, you have problems storing 10 pounds of rice in your fucking kitchen, right? You know, you go to the supermarket in the Costco and they typically have these big bags, you know, like 5 kilos of rice. And you're like, man, it's so fucking cheap, you know, and rice doesn't spoil it. Fuck it, I'll buy it. And then you're like, what the fuck do I do with this fucking rice? I mean, if it hasn't happened to you with rice, it's happened to you with something. Soda pop or dog food. It happened to me with dog food. I remember a couple of times I was dumb enough to order like 3 big, you know, 10-kilo bags of dog food, right? And storing it was a motherfucker, you know? The dog was like sniffing all this food and like, oh man, this is, you know, doggy heaven. And I'm like, holy fuck, what do I do with all this goddamn food? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, you see the problem. It's a serious problem. No fooling around. Now, storing it is a problem, but then there's the other issue with counterfeit precious metals. This happens all the time, by the way. You will find that owning precious metals is a fucking nightmare because it is so easy to counterfeit gold, so easy to counterfeit silver. And you're thinking to yourself that they're going to try to pass off, you know, tungsten as silver or some shit like that. No. What they do is very simple. See, they take a core of some metal that has the same weight as lead or that comes very close to it, and they wrap it around in roughly a centimeter of gold all around. And so it has the same size and roughly the same weight as gold. The only way to really know that it's not gold is if you measure it precisely and then weigh it. Measure it volumetrically and then weigh it. And the difference in volume between what is gold and silver, that's how you assay how much of some other metal has been put into the brick. Because the brick, of course, is not 100% gold. It's with this other metal. In fact, it's most of this other metal. Okay? And this happens all the time. And you just have to poke around on Google, on the internet, and you'll find cases all over the place of people, sophisticated people, who got faked out by counterfeit bricks. It happens all the fucking time, okay? And if you were to go out there and buy yourself like just 1 brick of gold for $750,000, right, which is the current market value of gold, if you were to go out there, the temptation would be enormous for some unscrupulous person to get a hold of a couple $100,000 worth of gold and, you know, the rest of it with some base metal, the cheap metal of some sort, wrap it around and walk away from this fraud with a profit of $500,000. You think they wouldn't do it? Of course they'd do it. They'd be foolish not to, of course. So you're always going to be worried that the shit that you're buying is for real. And you're going to demand guarantees. And these guarantees cost money. And so the ultimate cost of this is going to be higher. Okay, so those are the 2 problems with precious metals, the bulk and counterfeiters. Now, how do you solve these 2 problems with 1 stone? Oh, very simple. See, you go to a commodities broker. A commodities broker, some of them specialize in gold and silver and platinum. Some of them are just commodity brokers of everything. I mean, the larger firms are just everything, you know? Gold, silver, platinum, copper, aluminum, iron, whatever the fuck, steel, you know, and also agricultural commodities, you know, soybeans, corn, wheat, barley, blah, blah, blah. You know, the list goes on and on. The big firms handle all commodities. The specialized ones will just handle precious metals. It doesn't really matter. They're all essentially the same thing. A lot of times the specialist broker is actually owned by a larger company that has various different brokerages of different commodities. And that's just for purposes of marketing and corporate organization. They have these separate brands that trade in different commodities, but it's all one company. Like I say, it's different combinations, but commodities brokers all offer essentially the same thing, which is they store the commodity for you and they ensure that the commodity is the real deal. That's the two things. And how do they do this? How do they operate? Very simply. See, you go to a brokerage firm and you say, I want to buy a brick of gold. And they're like, no problem. It'll cost you $720,000, which is the current marketing price, plus storage fee. Storage fee for gold would be like a fraction of a percentage point, probably half a point, something like that. Okay. And so they'd say, the yearly storage is going to be $3,600 a year, $300 a month for one brick of gold. See, because as you can see, 720, half of 1%, 1% is 7,200. Half of 1% would be 3,600. 12 months in a year, 3,600 divided by 12 is $300. $300 a month, and we'll store your brick of gold, and we guarantee that it'll be the real deal. And you can, in fact, trade it with us at spot price, plus, of course, a commission, anytime you want. Okay? Simple as that. And you're like, man, this sounds terrific. It sounds fucking fantastic. I'll invest with a brokerage firm and they'll just give me a little piece of paper. They're not even going to give you the piece of paper. It'll just be like all electronic, email and shit, right? I mean, how much more convenient can it possibly be? You don't have to worry about storing the 10,000 ounces of silver that you bought. You don't have to worry about counterfeit bricks that might not be real. Yeah, no problem at all. But what are the problems? Number one is the brokerage fee. I mean, 0.5% a year doesn't sound like a lot. But if you're talking long-term storage, i.e. 10 years, that's 5%. It doesn't sound like a hell of a lot, but it adds up. It adds up, and it's money that you have to shell out. And of course, it could be that in 10 years, the precious metal that you bought is not worth as much. I mean, it's going to be an expense, no matter how you look at it, okay? The other problem, see, governments love when people buy precious metals via brokerage firms because it concentrates where the commodity is. Brokerage firms legally can give you the gold, can deliver it to you, give it to you physically, no problem, legally. But they're going to constantly throw up all kinds of roadblocks. And in some cases, they will actually charge you to give you the gold. And they'll make up some fee, some excuse, but ultimately what they don't want to do is give you the gold for two reasons. Number one, the government leans on all these brokerage firms to hold on to the gold in case the government ever needs to snatch up all that bullion for whatever fucking reason, okay? It could be totally legitimate. The country gets invaded and the government needs the gold so it doesn't fall into enemy hands, right? Or it could be totally bullshit. The government ran out of money and they want the gold, and fuck the owners of the gold. They want to grab the gold and sell it so they can get some cash for whatever the fuck they're doing, right? I mean, it doesn't matter why the government wants to snatch the bullion. The thing is, they want all the bullion in the hands of the licensed brokers so that if push ever comes to shove, they can grab that gold, that bullion, okay? Gold, silver, bullion. I'm talking about all precious metals here in this conversation, okay? So governments want to be able to snatch it. That's why they want it centralized. The other key issue with a brokerage firm, okay, that a lot of people don't understand is that, see, a lot of times the brokerage firm sells the gold that it has on hand multiple times. See, just like a bank takes in depositors and lends out money. And a bank at any one time does not have enough cash to cover all of its depositors. It assumes that all of its depositors will leave the money there so that they can take the money and lend it out at interest, of course. Brokers essentially, it's a little different, of course, little details here and there are different, but essentially they do the same fucking operation. You see, the gold that you own, it is not a specific brick that you have with the brokerage firm. It's just one of the bricks that the brokerage firm has. Unless you go into a specific contract with that broker for a specific brick of silver or gold or platinum with the what you call a serial number, only then are you going to be the owner of that particular brick. If you go into a specific contract with it, and there the broker is just holding it for you, and there the costs of storage are not 0.5%. They can easily go to 2% without breaking a sweat, and sometimes more. See? Because the brokerage firm doesn't want that. They don't want for you to be the owner of a specific brick of gold or silver. No, they want to have the certificate that they've given to you. It's basically an IOU, and that the brokerage firm will give you the gold if ever you require it, or it's cash equivalent, right? And so the broker, why does it do that? So that it can take the same gold and lend it out to somebody else. If it has to sign a contract with you for a specific brick, then they can't do anything with that brick. From their point of view, that brick is dead. They can't lend it out because it's ascribed to you. You are the legal owner of it. Therefore, they will charge you a lot more in storage fees to make up the lost profit from the business that they're not conducting. You see? Now, if you don't go into a contract for a specific brick, then if the brokerage firm, for whatever reason, goes tits up, it goes bankrupt, you're not going to be made whole. They're not going to return all the money, all the precious metals that you supposedly own. Just like in any bankruptcy, you would be just another creditor. And you wouldn't even be a preferred creditor because you'd be a customer of the brokerage firm. So you wouldn't be first in line. You'd probably be second or third in line. I mean, first in line would be the tax man. Second in line would be like the immediate suppliers of the brokerage firm. I mean, I'm talking a bankruptcy proceeding. And then you'd probably come in third. Yeah, that's how it would work. And you'd have to, you and all the other customers would divvy up the scraps left over from the bankruptcy of the brokerage firm. And this has happened. Yeah. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's not unheard of. The brokerage firm, a reputable one, goes under. Again, every single institution, every single company ever created will eventually go bankrupt and shutter. It is inevitable, okay? Just a matter of time. And so you see the problem. The only way to safeguard this situation is for you to pay through the nose for storage and to prevent against counterfeiting, of course, and owning a specific brick. Because if you own a specific brick, then it's not that that brick goes into the pool of assets of the bankrupt commodities broker. No, because the bankrupt commodity broker never owned it. It only held it for you. It was offering you a service. It was never an owner of that brick. So that brick goes to you, but it'll actually take a while before you get that brick. Yeah, because if a company goes bankrupt, the brokerage firm were to go bankrupt, and you own a specific brick with a specific serial number, and you've been paying through the nose every year for the privilege of storing it with the brokerage firm, well, then what's going to happen is that when the brokerage firm goes through bankruptcy, everything gets frozen, nothing is released, and it takes a legal process before specific assets held by the bankrupt company are released to the legitimate owners, in this case, you. And so you see the risk that you're running, see? Now, of course, this risk is infinitesimally small when things are going good. When things are going good, like if this were 2019, yeah, no problem. Put money in a brokerage firm, no problem, you know? A commodities brokerage firm, I mean. You know, you're not going to lose money. You're just going to be paying a little bit of storage, you know, 0.5% or whatever the fuck. You'll be fine. But now, I mean, again, the whole reason we're having this conversation is the expectation that things are going to go south. Well, then you'd be a little bit foolish to park your money with a commodity broker, you see? Okay, so that's one problem. Another problem you have with precious metals is valuation. Now, what's the problem with valuation? Well, very simple. You see, precious metals, not only are they precious, but they're beautiful. They are also used in industrial processes. All three of them are used to a greater or lesser extent. Now, platinum is the one that has the greatest industrial demand because it's used in catalytic converters. Catalytic converters are the device in the muffler of most cars that reduce emissions. I personally don't quite understand the chemistry involved, but I've been assured that it's legitimate. Okay, I'm being facetious. Everybody knows that cars that use unleaded gasoline need a catalytic converter in the muffler system to reduce emissions. Okay, and because of that, the price of platinum is kept higher than it ordinarily or necessarily would be. Hmm? Now, the problem that we're having now is that a lot more cars are going electric. Now, what does that mean? It means that if a lot more cars are going electric, there obviously is going to be less of a need for catalytic converters because these cars are not going to be running on gasoline now, are they? They're going to be electric. And therefore, the demand for platinum will go down. Now, sorry, something happened here that threw my concentration. So anyway, platinum, as an example, it has a problem of valuation because it rises and falls not necessarily as a store of value or because the currency is inflating away, but also because of the problem of how many cars are in demand, how many catalytic converters need to be supplied with platinum. You see? And so there's a little bit of a yo-yoing effect insofar as as platinum is concerned. Insofar as gold is also used in industrial processes, but relatively little compared to platinum. Okay, so the valuation of gold is much more attuned to whatever macroeconomic problems are going on. But there's another problem with gold and silver and also platinum. But gold and silver, it affects much more because there's less industrial demand, which is the following. The market in gold and silver is relatively small. It's not more than $1 trillion. Now you say to yourself, man, $1 trillion is a lot. $1 trillion is $1 million. Yeah, that's what it is, right? It's one followed by, 12 zeros. That's a lot of fucking zeros now, isn't it? Fuck yeah. But compared to, say, the treasury bond market, we're talking about a market that has nominal valuation at this point of something like $30 trillion. I mean, it's really chump change in comparison. Okay. So the amount of treasury bonds, and let alone agency bonds and municipal debt and all the whole bond market. I mean, actually, I should have looked it up before I did this presentation. But if you told me that it's between 50 and $100 trillion, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, it's huge. The gold market and silver market combined are less than $1 trillion, i.e., it's easy to manipulate it. And a lot of people have argued, a lot of gold bugs who are all kind of paranoid, but also a lot of other people who are not paranoid, who are more sensible. A lot of people have argued that the gold markets have been manipulated over the last few years precisely so as to hide inflation. There's also a known fact, that a few years ago, the London price fix for gold was literally fixed. The London price fix, it's the daily established pricing of gold worldwide. And it's fixed at a certain time for various reasons, contractual reasons that aren't important to this conversation. But the point is, see, the London gold fix, which is a daily event, it turned out that with regressive analysis, they were able to figure out that somebody was fixing it. And a whole host of people got into trouble. People at HSBC and some other banks, it was like a whole shit show. Okay, this was a few years ago. But the point is that proved that the price of gold can be easily manipulated. Okay. But of all the problems, I think that gold is the easiest commodity as a store of value, inert commodity, inert asset, because it's the most dense and it's the easiest to get. And compared to platinum and silver, it's actually the easiest to assay. An assay, ASSAY, that's the process by which you check the purity of a specific metal. You assay it, okay? It is both a verb and a noun. And to assay a metal is to check for its purity in composition. And from what I understand, I am not a chemist by any stretch of the imagination, but from what I understand, assaying gold is the easiest of all the precious metals. It's certainly the quickest and most readily available. And they can check it with pretty good certainty to up to a 99% confidence rate, okay? Gold is fairly available. And the most important of all, gold, unlike platinum, is very easy to move because there aren't a lot of people who are prepared to assay and then buy a brick of platinum. Because platinum, it's hard to tell if it's platinum, and the assaying process is not that straightforward and easy. It's possible, sure, but it's expensive and requires specialized equipment. Silver is easy to assay, but the problem is bulk. Okay, you're dealing with 1,000 ounces for $26,000. It's like, Jesus Christ, it's like almost more hassle than it's worth. But a 400-ounce bar of gold at $750,000, yeah, that's easier. But still, if you're moving like relatively a lot of money, it bulks up really quickly. But of the three precious metals that were under consideration, gold is the easiest to move around, okay? And so those are the problems with these precious metals, okay? Bulk, counterfeiting, valuation. If I were to invest in any precious metal, it would be gold. In fact, I have invested in precious metals, okay? I have both a account with a brokerage firm that's fairly reputable and long-lasting, and I also have physical possession of some gold. How much is it of my net position? I can say both of these are less than 10%. It's sort of like a flyer. And quite frankly, I have never gotten over the impact of gold that I got from gold when my father came home in 1980 during the whole gold rush. Yeah, when the Hunt brothers were trying to corner the silver market, and there was this huge run-up in the price of gold, also a product of the coup and the revolution, rather, in Iran. This was 1980. No, it must have been 79. 79, yeah. And I remember my dad came home with this box, okay? And it was fairly heavy. I mean, my dad is a very strong guy, yeah? And boxer, rugby player, really good athlete. And it was heavy for him. And he brought this big box, okay? It was, it looked huge to me. I was a boy then. But anyway, I remember trying to hold it up and I couldn't. I was a 10-year-old kid. I mean, I wasn't a weakling, right? And it was like really heavy. And he opened it. And it was all these Krugerrands. I'll never forget that. All these Krugerrands. Krugerrands are South African 1 troy ounce gold coins. And there were like stacks of this shit. And one of the shocking things is how bright the gold is. You see something that's gold plated and looks very pretty. But when you're holding actual solid gold, it's incredible. When I was living in New York City in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was invited by some acquaintances I knew to go to the Federal Reserve and see where they stored gold. And I held a brick of gold, like an actual Federal Reserve brick of gold, 400 ounces, baby. Okay. It felt dense to your palm. It wasn't so much the weight. You go to like a gym, say, and you hold one of these plates, these weight plates, of 20 pounds, 40 pounds, whatever the fuck, right? Well, when you hold gold, like a brick of gold, it's denser, a lot denser, and you feel it, okay? It's so weird because I remember very clearly after holding that brick of gold, I was in some gym and I picked up a plate and I was like, God, it's so light. Of course, it was roughly the same weight, but what was going on was that the plate at the gym was so much bigger. The brick of gold, it's so dense and it shines like nothing, okay? And I have to emphasize this. When you see something that's been gold plated, and you say to yourself, well, it's gold plated, which is basically the same fucking thing. It's surrounded by a layer of gold. Isn't it the same? No, it's not. It doesn't shine the same. I can't explain it. It's just, it's impossible to explain. And I do not believe that it's like a psychosomatic. I'm using it incorrectly. I'm using the word incorrectly, but you know what I mean. It's not like something that like an ideation that you have. No, no, no. There really is a different tone to the gold shine of solid gold compared to something that's been gold plated. Mm-hmm. There's nothing like it. And what's really remarkable is that it's after you've held solid gold, real gold, your eye becomes accustomed to it. And after that, you can always spot what's just merely gold plated, what's not real, you know? And lots of times I spot like a wedding band and I'm like, that's not real. That's not 100% gold. It might be gold. It might be like, quite a bit, like 80% or some shit like that. But it's not 100% or 99.999% gold. No, you can always tell there's something. It's hard to explain, okay? And you look at a wedding band, most wedding bands, they're not solid gold. In fact, very few of them are solid gold, okay? Most of them are, not most of them, but a lot of them are merely gold plated. A lot of them, the purity is way down in the 80 percentile, okay? When you see real gold, when you feel real gold, it has a weight to it. When you put a solid gold ring in the palm of your hand, you know it. It's impossible for me to explain it to you any better than that. You would have to experience it. But believe me, if you ever have the opportunity to hold real gold, grab that opportunity. It's really shocking, okay? Same thing happens to a lesser extent with silver and platinum. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I was doing a business deal with some Chinese people, and as a token of esteem, I got a little silver coin with a panda on it. I lost the fucking thing, but anyway, it was nothing at the time. It was like $20 or less, $16 if memory serves. This was back in 2016 or 2015. Yeah, and what happened was that the silver, it was like noticeable. It was real silver. It was a real deal. Yeah. And I knew it because these Chinese, it was such a situation that they never would have given me like a counterfeit or a cheapy silver coin. They would give me a real thing. And you could tell. You could always tell the real thing from, the fakes. But you cannot tell when a brick is basically in the middle has some other metal and it's been surrounded by a layer of metal, a layer that's half a centimeter thick or more. You can't tell the difference, okay? The weight is virtually identical. Or you need a machine to tell the difference. And like I said, you need to have the exact volumetric sizes of the brick and compare it with the exact weight down to the third decimal place. And only then can you ascertain that you have a solid, pure metal and a fake, okay? Anyway, those are the three problems. Now, let's move on to my conclusions. So why do people invest in non-income producing assets, be it collectibles or precious metals? Well, fear, okay? Fear not only of what's going to happen in the future, but also fear of taking a wrong step. A lot of people decide that they're only going to invest in precious metals because they have no idea where to invest. And they're terrified. They're terrified of losing, which is a natural human impulse. And so a lot of times people go into non-income producing assets, not even because they really think that things are going to go tits up, but because they're so scared of investing. They don't know where to put their money that they're like, okay, I'm just going to put it there because it's the safest fucking thing. And they feel as if they're investing. They're not investing. They're simply parking their money. Okay? Who should invest in inert assets, be it collectibles or precious metals? Very simple. People who don't need the money they invest in the inert asset, and people who don't need extra income from their investments. See? Remember I started this conversation with telling you about how I bought this piece of land, right, back in the day. I bought this piece of land and I just forgot about it. Just left it there. Yeah, I didn't need it, you know. I mean, I remember I prepaid the land tax. I would prepay it every 3 years, you know. I just like go there and just zip the credit card and that was that. You know, it's a very easy process in Chile to pay for property tax. And so, you know, I forgot about it because I didn't need extra income. And I didn't need the money that I put into the bit of land, okay? Those 30 grand, what the fuck would I have done with those 30 grand back in 2002? I had my own apartment. I had a couple of cars. You know, I had my scooter. I didn't need money. I didn't need, you know, 30 grand for anything in particular. So sure, I'll just pop it in there and leave it there and forget about it. And that's what I did. And it was a smart investment. I made a lot of money off of it, right? And so an inert asset is for people who don't need the money at the time that they make the purchase of the inert asset, and they don't need the income that comes from a normal investment or from an average investment. Because, of course, I could have taken those 30 grand. At that time, I could have spent that money on buying an apartment, a small apartment in a fairly nice area that would have given me a couple of hundred, maybe $300-400 a month in rent after all expenses and all the rest of it. That actually would have been a pretty solid investment long term, but it would have been an investment, not buying a non-income producing asset. Because the investment of an apartment that pays rent, it's paying rent, i.e. it is producing an income every month. But I didn't need an income at that time. I didn't need it. I was fine as I was. And so what did I do? I just, you know, bought that piece of land, fallow land, and nothing happened on the fucking thing for 10 years until all of a sudden, you know, I remember I hadn't driven in that area since I bought it. And I remember driving out there before I sold it. And I got lost, of course, because also I remember when I bought it, it was all hilly and nothing around, nothing built, just some random streets here and there, but nothing built. And when I drove back in 2012, 2013, something like that, I'm driving around lost, and it's full of houses, full of fucking these, you know, typical suburban houses. And I'm like, yay, team. And I got to my lot, and it was the only fallow one there. It was the last one. Yeah, and of course, that's why I made the money I did, because the whole thing had been developed. All these big houses, all the lots were also 5,000 square meters. And so all the houses were fairly large, i.e. they were of people who had means. And so, of course, you know, that fallow land, it wasn't even a particularly strategically located bit of land, but, you know, it was going to sell good, and it did. And that was that, see? But you see the point. I bought it and forgot it. That's who should invest in inert assets. Somebody who doesn't need the money and doesn't need money to come out of the investment. Why would I never invest in inert assets? Or would I ever invest in inert assets? Well, never. Okay? Because like I said, I invested less than 10% of my net worth, but frankly, it's quite a bit less. I mean, it's more than 5%, but a lot less than 10%. Okay? Why I would never invest in an inert asset? Because I personally need my assets to produce an income. Because I have obligations. Yeah. I support several people in my life. I have a fairly large monthly nut that I have to cover. And I have a whole bunch of investments such that they allow me to cover my nut. And I could not afford to park a substantial amount of my money into some asset that doesn't produce an income. I personally can't really do that. I mean, the position I have in precious metals, that's as far as I can go. Yeah. And that's just, you know, like a flyer. But in general, you know, no. I mean, if adding up everything I own and all the rest of it on my special spreadsheet with all my shit, right? Yeah. If my my numbers ever got to a point where the precious metals position is approaching 10%, I'd start selling it off and putting that money into something that actually produces an income. I mean, quite frankly, the position I have in precious metals really is a flyer. It's just a really like an insurance case. But overall, investing in an inert asset, fuck no. Would I ever suggest to a friend that they invest in inert assets? Never. Because paradoxically, inert assets are too volatile. Let me explain. You see, an inert asset, like I said, it's a collectible or a precious metal. right? Now, precious metals, they go up and down in value all the time, and sometimes precipitously, not because shit is really going on, but there is the expectation. I always think of the time in 1979, 1980, when gold shot the moon. My dad got into gold at something like $220 an ounce, some shit like that. And he exited the position, I remember this very clearly, at $460 or something like that. And gold kept on going up. It went all the way up to 830. And I remember asking my dad, well, why didn't he hold on to it? It was still going up. And my dad said something very wise. My dad's a fucking moron, but he said a few wise things, and this was one of them. He said, only a fool waits for top dollar. He was dead right. It was a smart move. He'd made a shit ton of money, okay? Because, I mean, he'd bought the gold, like the actual fucking gold, but he'd also bought gold positions, okay? And those gold positions came a cropper, and he exited them way before the top of the market. And the actual gold that he bought, same thing. He exited the position way before the market topped. He made his money and pocketed it. And was there a real justification for this apocalyptic rise in the price of gold? Not really. The price of gold rose for no real reason other than a weird panic. It was volatility. It was not reality. And this tends to happen with inert assets. Collectibles, they collapse in value lots of times because people need cash, even when things might not be that terrible, but they need cash. And so the collectible, the Tom Brady trading card that was worth $3 million, all of a sudden becomes worth, say, 100 grand, a drop in price of 97% of its valuation, just because there might be a little panic, a little bit of a run on these things, okay? And that happens all the time with collectibles, with inert assets. Collectibles and precious metals, diamonds included, okay? They're way volatile. And of course, they could shoot the moon, but they can also collapse. And nobody has a crystal ball, see? What is a better non-income producing asset? In my estimation, land. Land, because they're never going to make any more of it, okay? And land always remains. Assuming that your property tax is not usurious, land is always going to be the best investment long term, always. And if you can figure out how to produce an income out of that land, then you're set. This is a reality. Okay. And frankly, it's the basis of my financial well-being. The fact that I own property and this property produces an income and I don't have to worry about money. It's because of land. That's the truth. Okay. As of late, the big problem in real estate is the commercial real estate. Commercial real estate is in serious trouble because of the whole COVID-19 thing, which made people work from home and buy stuff online. This has been a disaster for retail stores and for offices. I mean, let me phrase it. It's been a disaster for the owners of retail spaces and the owners of corporate offices. By a fluke, I personally don't have commercial real estate because of certain tax incentives and certain tax benefits. It's been beneficial to me to own housing and not commercial real estate. And because of that, because of the tax advantages I have, because of the situation back in Chile, I didn't have anything in commercial in commercial real estate. And because of this, when this whole shit show started, it didn't affect me, but it has affected other people. Well, actually, I'm not speaking totally the truth. I own one particular bit of property in downtown Santiago where there's a law firm office, but that would never change. And the reason I bought it is because it would never change. It's because that particular office is for a law firm. And you see, in Chile, all of the bureaucracy is downtown. And so prices of properties downtown, let me phrase that. The rent of properties downtown will always be stable, and law firms will always need to have an office downtown because they have to do all of their work with the government face to face. They don't accept it online. You have to show up and sign in person. And that's why there will always be law firms in Santiago downtown. And that's why I bought this commercial real estate. I have a long-term rental contract with the law firm. It's going to expire in 2027. So, I'm not worried. But that's the exception. Everything else, it's just housing. And that's the best investment long term. Okay. Real estate that produces an income and that you can foresee will always produce an income. Okay. That's what you want to be involved in, invested in. Okay. Diamonds, precious metals, they're sexy, they're cool. And like I said, there is a space to have a portion of a portfolio in gold because, anything can happen. And of course, it could be that there's such an upside to gold that, yeah, it was worth getting into it. That could be the case, but you'd never want to bet the ranch. You always want to reduce your position just to hedge against any kind of risk. And insofar as diamonds are concerned, that's fucking risky. It doesn't seem so, but it is because of the De Beers monopoly. And any other collectible class, any other collectible item, whatsoever that collectible item is, you'd be a fool to get into it, okay? Unless the cost of entry is minuscule. I mean, really trivial, don't get into a collectible, okay? I mean, like the only people that I would agree with that should get into a collectible are people who are actual hobbyists who like this shit. Stamp collectors and people who like the stupid Cards Against Humanity or whatever, or Magic the Gathering, whatever the fuck those stupid card games are. I mean, those people are actual hobbyists who get enjoyment out of their fucking hobby. Yeah, sure. I mean, because that's just a fucking hobby. That's not an investment. I'm talking about people who are looking at this shit as an investment. You'd be insane to get into collectibles. Okay? You'd be a fool. Again, accepting the situation where the cost of entry is minuscule and the potential upside would cover all of the minuscule expense. Okay? Like I said, the hypothetical example of the guy who every year, like clockwork, buys all of the rookie cards of all the new players in Major League Baseball or the National Football League, right? Then, yeah, sure. But, again, like I said, the expense is not going to be a hell of a lot. And, it might be a big payday at some point in the distant future, like buying a lottery ticket with better odds, right? But again, no, you don't invest in the lottery. That's insane. It's a lottery. It's a risk. It's more likely than not you will lose. And you have to think to yourself, in any kind of collectible, quote unquote, investment you get into it, you have to assume that you're going to lose all the money you put into that collectible. And then, sure, go ahead. If you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to lose all my money, but I really enjoy this hobby, collecting rookie cards of Major League Baseball, or collecting stamps, or collecting whatever the fuck, and I enjoy it. And yeah, I'm spending money on it, but I'm just gonna assume, fuck it, I'm gonna lose all this money. And if ever in years or decades hence I actually do make money, it'll be like money from heaven, and I'll think of it in those terms. Then sure, go ahead, knock yourself out. But if you're thinking of it as a serious investment, you're counting on this money, you're an idiot. Don't do it. Okay? That's what I would say to a friend. I am not giving any kind of investment advice. Okay? I should have said that at the beginning of this thing. I'm just pointing out the pitfalls and the possible risks involved. Okay? I just want to be really fucking clear. Man, I should have done the disclaimer at the beginning, but this will have to do. Okay? Okay, so I've yapped on for an hour and a half. Let's take some questions, shall we? Let me find the... hang on. And I've just put the link. So we'll have people on and we'll shoot the shit about what's going on. The camera is not working. What's going on? Huh? Camera isn't working. Okay. I don't know what to do. Okay, so let's bring on Anthony. Anthony, how's it going?
Oh, fine, Coach. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. What's on your mind?
So I joined your live stream late because today's a work day, so I'm
Yeah.
taking a break so I could kind of listen to it. You may have talked about this already. I have no idea, and I need some advice on this because I own some collectible because when I was little, since I was young, so you can say whatever. But I when I was little, I liked the comic books, so
Hmm.
I have like a whole box full of them. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'm realizing, now that I'm kind of grown up, I need to like get rid of them. And I'm thinking, what's the best way? Because under the current conditions, I think I probably wouldn't get much from it because with the lockdowns and the market the way it is, I'm not sure
I
what.
have no idea. I have
Uh,
no idea about the comic book business at
uh,
all. So what to do with comic books? I have no clue whatsoever. I'm sorry to say.
uh, okay, well, I guess I was hoping for a better answer, but thank you for being
No,
frank with
I'm
me.
I'm sorry. I mean, I
Yeah.
wish I could. I honestly have no idea about the market in comic books, none whatsoever. I know that there are a lot of YouTubers who are into that, so maybe you should check them out. But unfortunately, I'm so sorry, Anthony. I can't help you out because I don't
Okay.
know. Anything else on your mind?
No, that's all I had. Thank you for your time, sir. Thank you.
No, no
All right.
problem at all. Thank you
All right.
so much,
All right.
Anthony. I
All right.
appreciate you being on.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye. RM, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Can you speak up? I can't hear you.
I hope now it's better.
Yeah, it's better. Yeah, go ahead. What's
Okay.
on your mind, man?
So I same as Anthony. I'm at work, so I'm not sure. Maybe you have talked about this, but my question is about like rights, real estate investment instruments, like in markets.
Yep.
Uh, because I don't have the time to like manage like real estate. I'm not in that point in my life, and also my capital is not that much to amount to anything like big enough for that. Uh, are there any caveats about them, and do you suggest them like in the eurozone? And I'm in US, so is there a
I
possibility of?
About specific investment vehicles, I can't give you an opinion. I can't give you any kind of investment advice because I'm not an investment advisor. Now, insofar as real estate investment trusts, you have to look at each of them. Each of them is structured differently. Okay. And
Mhm.
so I cannot tell you. Now, what I can say is that, see, any investment that is offered by a reputable investment firm, I mean, like a big bank or whatever, it's probably going to be on the up and up, but you're never going to make real money off of that. Real money in the sense of a long-term solid investment. Okay.
Mhm.
In order to invest so as to get a good return on your investment, you always have to do it yourself. That is, you yourself have to buy the asset and manage it. Now, insofar as real estate, if you buy real estate, what I do is I have on the ground a real estate manager, and I pay him a fixed amount of the rental income that I get from the properties, irrespective of whether they're rented or not. It's his responsibility to have them rented out. That's the agreement that I struck with this guy. And so I pay him a little bit more, but in the long run, it pays me because he's constantly running to keep everything rented out and running smoothly. Okay?
So I
Because
didn't catch that. The liability of the place not being rented is on them.
yeah,
Okay, that's smart
yeah,
to pull
yeah,
off.
yeah. If you can do it, okay. You got to find investment a real estate manager who's willing to do that. Of course, there are some who are not willing to do that because they realize that they don't want to take on that risk, right?
Mhm.
But I was able to do that because at the time, the rental market was a very much of a go-go market, and I locked him into a long-term contract. So now he's kind of fucked. If things go south, it's not only that I don't pay him, there's a penalty involved. And in return, he's getting a higher payment than some other real estate broker. But on the downside is that if it's ever empty, he has to pay.
Mhm.
Okay? And so that's the advantage of the deal I struck.
So do you run the math on that, like expected value and this kind of stuff, and the risk factor, and you decided that that number works for you, and
Yeah.
apparently that number works for them also.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
No problem. You take it easy.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much for being on, RM. Hey, Advar, how's it going? Advar, are you there?
Good. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. Go ahead. Hello?
There's
Hello?
a lag.
Okay. Well, you're just going to have to speak up and tell me what's on your mind.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, so it's a 5-second lag on this thing.
Okay, if you don't tell me what on your mind, I'll just
So
go to the...
I'm a big-time silver investor, and just yeah. Sorry about the internet. Just let me talk, and I'll get to the point. So I agree with. I think you got the facts right on your silver points. I just disagree with the conclusions you're reaching. So as far as yeah, silver is bulky beyond any doubt, but I don't consider that to mean that you shouldn't invest in silver. I think of it as a testament to the fact that silver is probably the most undervalued asset in human history. If you look at silver in a historical perspective, the average wage throughout history, and still 2/3 of the world today, was 1/10 of 1 ounce of silver. But you know, I as a carpenter can buy like 5, 6, 7 ounces of silver for 1 day's wage.
I see your point, but that is basically arguing for the value of silver. I'm not disputing that. What I am disputing or saying is that owning silver is a hassle. And there are a lot of people for whom the bulk is an issue. I'll tell you right now, for me, it's an issue. I don't have any silver coins. Well, that's not true. I've got a couple of silver coins. Altogether, I might have maybe 5 ounces of silver, which is a trivial amount. It's less than $150. And I just have it because they're really, it's not the value of the silver, but just the mementos of it. And the point about silver is that what you're saying, yeah, right now it's severely undervalued. Why is this the case? Well, there are a lot of different explanations. And a lot of people think that it's because of manipulation. Other people think that because precious metals are no longer important in the modern economy. It doesn't matter why. You have to just focus on the fact that it is undervalued, severely undervalued. And the likelihood that it will regain its former valuation, that is that a day's wage of the average worker will be 1/10 of an ounce of silver, as opposed to what it is now, which is basically between 3 and 5 ounces of silver. That day might come, or it might never come, or it could happen in 30 years, long after it matters to you and me. Now, am I dissuading people from investing in silver? No. If you want to invest in silver, go ahead. Am I disputing the value of silver? No, I'm not. I'm saying that you have to look into it and realize that, number one, it's exceedingly bulky. Number two, it is very difficult to move it around. And so if you want any kind of financial agility, the ability to move money around to do different things, both in your own country and in foreign countries, then you have to understand that silver is not a particularly agile instrument to hold value. That's my point. I'm not knocking silver. I'm just pointing out the reality of investing in silver. Hello.
Hello.
Right. Yeah,
Good morning.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Advar. But thanks very much. I appreciate you being on. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Hello. Good morning, Coach. It's John Goodchip calling from Edinburgh, Texas, in South United States.
How's it going?
Very simply, I missed the. I'm getting feedback here on this.
Probably because you have to put on earphones.
Say that again, please.
You probably have to put on earphones.
Have earphones on. However, I'll try and get this out. Very simply, okay. How do you feel for gold or silver, either one, as a hedge against inflation? In the sense that Years ago, buying 1 ounce of gold would buy you a suit, a haircut, and a good meal. And certainly the price of gold has gone up, but on an equivalent basis, today it pretty much will buy you a good suit, a good meal, and a haircut. So although the dollar value has gone up, the actual ability of what it will buy is roughly the same. So my question is, buying or having gold or silver as a hedge against inflation, what are your views upon that? Hello, hello. Lost you.
Oh God, thank God. You guys still there? Hit a +1 if you are. Hello, Igor, you there?
Hello, coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. Sorry about that. And to you and to all the audience members, it was a little fuck up that I caused because I didn't, my image was not appearing. And so I was like, just my avatar was appearing and I wanted to be on camera so that you could see me. And I hit what I thought would turn on the camera, but it just disconnected me. And I had to sort of like reset this whole fucking thing. I'm so sorry about that. And for the dead time, I apologize to all. And I was talking to somebody. Who was it that I was talking to? Igor, do you happen to remember? John Goodship. Let me pull on John
Yes.
Goodship first. I'm gonna take you out,
Yes.
Igor, and bring in John because so he can finish his stream, his question. John, I'm so sorry about that. That was my mistake.
Quite fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine. So please go
Great.
ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, I was simply saying that I'm looking at gold and silver, not so much for an investment, as it's often used as a source of insurance, in the sense that years ago, 1 ounce of gold would buy you a good suit, a good meal and a haircut. And today it pretty much does the same thing. As the dollar becomes worth less and less, it will maintain its buying power. Okay. And so I look at gold and silver in that light. Not that it's going to go up by a lot. The other thing is, I realize
the historical metric for gold is that an ounce of gold could get you a horse, a saddled horse. That's always been the traditional metric of the value of gold. And you should look at the price of horses. And if you can buy a horse with a saddle for an ounce of gold or the equivalent, then things are okay. That's been the traditional metric. Now, do I think of gold as and other precious metals as a hedge against inflation? Absolutely, certainly. That's the reason that I have a bit of my net worth invested into precious metals, into gold specifically. Do I think that gold can be easily manipulated? Yes, I do. It's already happened. It's happened in the past by the London gold fix scandal of a few years ago that HSBC was involved in or mixed up in some way. I forget the details, but you can just Google it up. And the point is that, see, gold, the price of gold can be manipulated. And so, quite frankly, and I hate to say it, but I wouldn't put it past any of these assholes in the central banks of the United States and Europe to do something hinky in order to hide inflation, up to and including manipulating the price of gold, which, as I said, is a fairly small market and therefore easy to manipulate. Manipulate it to hide the actual impact of inflation. In fact, I would not be surprised if they have contingency plans exactly to do this. I would not be surprised if they are actively doing that right now so as to hide inflation, which seems to be a lot worse than people are admitting, because a lot of anecdotal evidence is cropping up here and there. And so, yeah, I think that the manipulation of precious metals would be an easy thing. And that's another reason why I'm always suspicious about precious metals.
I would agree with you. I'm still here. I've just been listening to what you're saying, and I would strongly agree with you. However, I would point out that as inflation takes hold, and certainly it's going up a lot more than just 1 or 2%, we know that in our gasoline prices and food, etc. Eventually, it's the inflation's. It already is becoming obvious. Yeah, it's becoming obvious, and therefore, you can only hold gold down or all commodities down for a certain length of time. Eventually, sugar will go up, corn will go up, everything will go up due to the cost of production, due to increased gas, etc., fuel costs. And so, I suspect that over time, gold and silver will come down. I do agree with you that I think gold and silver both have been already heavily manipulated. Okay, one quick question I wonder about, something I've heard various gold, silver proponents saying, gold's going to hit $10,000 an ounce. And it may or may not, who knows? It doesn't really matter, because at that point, at $10,000, what's the cost of a loaf of bread then? It's going to be ridiculously high again. That's why I came back to the buying power of gold and silver. What does it buy? What does it get you? Okay.
You're talking. What you're really talking about is is inflation, right?
Yes.
And the ultimate inflation trade is to go into debt, into a loan, a mortgage loan, say, that is perhaps slightly higher, but is not an adjustable rate mortgage. That's a fixed interest rate mortgage, and that it'll be a fixed payment, even if you're paying slightly higher percentage interest. If it's a fixed rate and there's a heavy period of inflation, then you're going to make out very well. And I have done this specifically, and I'll explain the trade. Find a property, a rental property, something that you can rent fairly easily. I always have a soft spot for 1-bedroom apartments, because there is always somebody who wants a 1-bedroom apartment. They're easy to move, right? And easy to maintain, cheap, easy. Right? And they're usually located in areas there's always going to be a demand. Now, I have purchased several of these, and I took out mortgages. I use the property as the guarantee of the mortgage. I put up a quarter of the value of the property. I got into debt for the rest. I rented out the property. The rent of the property at this time already covers the mortgage payment. And if there's more inflation, the rental contract that I have is that I can adjust the rental price for inflation. And so I am never going to be at a loss. But what will happen is that the bank that lent me the money, well, as inflation rises, the rent that I'm going to be charging is going to go up too, but the mortgage payment is going to stay the same. And so over time, the inflation will kill off the debt. And that's what I'm counting on. That's my inflation bet. Me personally, this is me. I'm not suggesting anybody do this. Okay, I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not offering financial advice. I'm just telling you what I am doing. My thing is buy property with a mortgage at a fixed rate, even if I have to pay a higher interest rate, but it's a fixed interest rate that can never be changed. The payment is always going to be the same. And make sure that the rental contract, I can adjust it for inflation. And also another way to do this easily is to have contracts that have only a year period, okay? Not long-term contracts, because at the end of the year, you can renegotiate it for a higher rent if there is higher inflation, see? And that way, over the next 5-10 years, if the inflation that I expect to arrive does arrive, the inflation will kill the debt that I own and that I owe for these apartments. And that's how I'll make out. See, that's me. That's my hedge against inflation, which I think is a more effective hedge against inflation than buying precious metals. But that's my opinion. Okay. That's my strategy. You're free to do as you see fit.
Only to say one comment and one last question, and then I'll get off the line here. The comment is, it sounds like you've been similar to Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad fellow who wrote the book many years ago. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
Yeah, I know of the book and I know of him, but I've actually never heard him speak and I've never read his book.
That's
go
fine.
ahead.
Last question is, because you're talking about real estate now, and I'm in South Texas in the United States, we've had a rent moratorium for going on a year now, I guess. And so my question would be, when this moratorium is finally over, the real estate market, I think, is going to change. But my question, you've clearly been watching the West, even though you're in the Ukraine. In regards to the United States, what do you think the real estate market's going to do in the United States in the next 6 to 12 months? Once
the moratorium has to end at some point. Okay. And when that happens, anything could happen. I think there are going to be a lot of defaults. I mean, landowners got fucked in the United States. Landlords, rather. They got fucked in the ass in the United States. I think that there's going to be a general real estate crash in the United States, to tell you the truth. Other countries did not have these moratoriums, and therefore they didn't have the same problems. And I didn't invest in the United States. Beyond that, I'm not going to discuss my personal finances. But what I can say is that because of this moratorium, that wasn't applied everywhere. Because as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, each of the 50 states had its own policy. Some had renter moratoriums and others didn't. Is that correct?
I honestly don't know the answer to that, because I am not a renter. I own my own home outright. But I'm just looking at, I've been looking at the real estate market, wondering whether to buy now or wait. I'm thinking it may be best to wait, because I think things will come down.
Sure, wait. See, you never buy unless you're 100%. Okay?
Yeah.
If you're 100%, buy. But if you're not, if you're like, 60% or less, wait. See what happens. I mean, if things go the other way and you lose a little money because things start to go up and it was smarter to have purchased earlier, well, okay, fine. You lost a little bit of money. You had to pay a little bit more. But I think it's better to have to pay a little bit more than to have lost a lot. Okay? And so if you're not sure, just wait and see. That's my thinking.
Last thing to say, thank you for your time, and best wishes to you and your family. Take care now.
Thank you. You too. Take it easy, John. Thank you for being on. I appreciate it. Hey, Igor, how's it going?
Hello, Coach. Great. Before we start, I just want to compliment your stream yesterday with wheat waffles and other guys.
Yeah.
It was really, really great.
I got a lot of flack from a lot of kids saying that I was cringe, that I was talking about things that were like that about reality back in the United States in the 80s, that today was totally different and shit like that. I mean, real black pill shit, right? And from my point of view, it's like just a lot of young kids who are just pissed off. I don't know if you agree or not, Igor. I mean, you sound like an older guy, Igor. How old are you?
I'm actually 19, but I'm
You're
the guy
19?
who, yes, in Eastern Europe, it is eaten or be eaten or be eat other people. Yeah, so you
Yeah.
need to grow up
Or
fast.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But what did you think of Wheat Waffles? He seemed very pissed off and very of his fixed ideas. That's my
I think
conclusion.
if we buy him a hooker, he will change his mind about women. He needs to get some pussy. But I love
Yeah,
his
I
British
agree.
accent
I
though.
agree. Poor guy. I mean, I think he's really smart, but I think he's really fucking naive, man. And he doesn't realize that he's just going through this phase that he's at the bottom of the totem pole, and he just does not want to believe that he insists that this reality, that this miserable experience that he's experiencing, this miserable reality that he's experiencing, is universal. He cannot conceive that it's just him because of his age, and I find that really funny. I find it really, really funny. But he'll figure it out. But anyway, Igor, what's on your mind?
No, just a second about Tweet Waffles. I will pay him a trip. I'm not that well off because I'm teenager, but I will pay him for a trip to come to Eastern Europe to see bunch of ugly dudes like El Goblinos with 18 and 19 pretty models. Like those guys are stealing my girls. Yeah, and that is my competition, not some Chad, not some athlete. We have a lot of athletes. We have a lot of basketball players. Interestingly enough, a lot of them are incels. That is why they go into sport and exercise like crazy.
What
The
city are
only
you in?
type
Or what country are you in?
Serbia, the country where you have a lot of tall basketball players. So this is real chads, no joking around. Just to
Yeah,
look at our sportsmen,
sure.
sportswomen, very pretty people.
Oh, congratulations of Novak Djokovic. Yeah,
Yeah,
Wimbledon
thanks.
champion. Yeah. But so you're telling me that a lot of these basketball players who are Chads, they're not getting the hot 19-year-olds, but the El
No,
Gobelinos.
no, the Algoblinos who drive a Mercedes and have a business, who have a beard, who are bald and have no teeth in their head, God forbid they smile because they will kill somebody with that. But
Yeah, well, the thing is, see, well, like I said, it's understandable. There's also a clear issue that in societies where the government is willing to support women and support single mothers, then there's a whole different dynamic. And in Serbia, I don't know the situation, in any level of detail in Serbia, but I'm assuming that if a woman is a single mother, the government might give her money, but it's not enough to live on. Is that correct?
no, government give you no money. Government take your money.
Yeah, yeah. And so because of that, I think that that's the real issue. And in countries where the government will take care of a woman, then she can just fuck around. But in a country where the government will not take care of the woman, like here in Ukraine, then it's a different story. That's my thinking. Well,
Yeah, I definitely think you're right, and I'm happy to be growing up here. I don't know how I would cope growing up in West. It seems it's really, really hard.
well, look, there's another problem too that I didn't want to emphasize, but you see, in among men, we all know that there are guys who are not merely better looking than us, but are just more charismatic, more attractive than us, right? And we are all on a hierarchy, and there are some guys above us and some guys below us. And what happens is that the guys who are really down on the totem pole, the bottom third, the bottom, they are never going to find a girl, yeah, or they will find the rejects. Okay, and this is a fact that's always happened. Okay, there's always been a bottom 15 to 30% that never find an attractive girl. But the thing is, see, that I wanted to emphasize to Wheat Waffles, and he didn't want to hear this story, is that no matter how ugly you might be, see, if you develop other things that make you attractive, you will get a woman. Women, if they are ugly, they are not going to get a guy. If they're like really ugly, that's it. And nothing that they do, no matter how interesting their personality or whatnot, will change that fact. But a guy can be really fucking ugly, but if he's got other shit going for him, he can get a woman. Perhaps not a top tier woman, but he can get a woman. And I think that is a reality that wheat waffles cannot accept. Whatever. Anyway, Igor, great talking to you, man.
Wait, can I just ask you one more question? That's it.
Go ahead.
We talked about real estate, and the question is, you have a lot of people in Africa, but they don't have money, and in Europe, especially in Serbia, you have money, but you don't have people. People are leaving, the migrants are coming, and for anybody who thinks they're coming in Serbia, don't come, because our president signed a deal with Angela Merkel. So all the migrants across the Europe that are deported to Serbia. So all the scum of the earth will come here. This is so fucked up. I don't know how I am the only guy raging here. And everybody's like, oh, we need higher wages. Oh, the weather is nice. Oh, Rio Tinto is polluting our waters. Fuck everything. Concentrate on this. We will get fucked. So anyway, what are your thoughts?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that the Europeans are dumping all their rejects into Serbia. So these are people from the Middle East and Africa. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they are causing a lot of problems, I assume.
Yes, only young men stabbing each other, stabbing police officers.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. You know, I don't get it. I don't get it. To me, it just seems that the European leadership, they're just fucking evil. I mean, at what point do you say it's not that they're ignorant? They know what's going on. They know what they're doing. They're just evil. Because if they're ignorant, if they're doing this thinking it's a good idea, but without realizing the consequences, that's fine. But it's been so many years that at this point, you just have to say these fuckers are evil. And that's my thinking.
I disagree, Coach. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
But at least my president, he was proud. He was talking in a talk that went on television and radio, but was later taken down because he is stupid dipshit, and people saw what he was talking about. He was proud. By 2025, there will be more migrants coming to Serbia than young people leaving the country. And he was like really proud, and you can see the passion in his eyes. And I was like, what the fuck?
That's population replacement. That's population replacement. He's replacing the Serbian people for migrants. Holy shit. And he was proud of that. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy. Do you have like a link to this?
I can give you his talk, but it does not have English translation.
Oh, okay. That's unfortunate. Because like I'd like to see that. That would be really. Yeah, if you can do me a favor, can you make a English translation for it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'd love to see it, and I think a lot of other people would, and I'd be sure to pass it around to the people here on Patreon. Definitely. Yeah. Holy shit, that's fucking crazy. Okay, good to know, Igor. I'll be waiting for it. You can send me an email with a link to Coach Red Pill, all one word, coachredpill@gmail.com. Okay, I'd really like to see that. Okay.
Sure thing. Bye.
Okay, take it easy, Igor. Hi, Lucas. How's it going?
Gonzalo, what's up? How are you doing?
Pretty good. What's on your mind, man?
Today, I actually keep myself short because I got a flight going to Kiev in 2 hours.
Oh, okay. Where are you now?
I'm now in Hamburg, and I'm going to go visit my Ukrainian friend there, and we're going to go to Odessa to party, to meet some of his friends, to go out with some girls. It's going to be a fun time.
Sounds like it. More power to you, man. Yeah.
Thanks,
Fantastic.
man.
Anyway, what's on your mind?
Well, what's on my mind? So you've been talking about potential investment ideas. And what I wanted to ask you is that, well, your go-to way of investing your money is real estate and land, as far as I've understood.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering...
Yeah.
Yes, sure. It's no advice, of course. So what my question is, at at an earlier point of your means of financial assets, do you have any ideas for alternative investments? Because as soon as I get down to enough capital to raise for an apartment and to take out a loan, I could do that, of course. But what's your advice for someone with maybe like a low 5-figure assets? Well, right now the money is invested in ETFs, in single stocks, in things like that. But do you have any alternative investment ideas? That's my question.
No, but if you're invested in the markets, in ETFs and various stocks or mutual funds, right?
Yeah.
You want to ensure that you can pull your money quickly. Okay? Quickly, like on a dime. If you're going to be paying fees for some investment bank or some investment firm or whatnot, you better make sure that you can pull your cash almost as quickly as if it were in cash at a bank. Okay? Because that way you can exit any position if things go south. I personally do not believe that the markets are going to go down for the foreseeable future. I think that they're going to be artificially maintained up so that nobody feels nervous. Because I know that the central banks and the various treasury departments and the government bureaucracy in charge of the finance and economics, they are very, very nervous about this period, and all they want is for all the markets to remain up and on the steady upswing, right? And so I personally don't really worry about the markets at this point, but I personally would be positioned in such a way to take advantage of any upswing in the markets, but ready to exit all of my market positions as quickly as possible and pivot to some other asset class that could store value. That's what I would do. Okay. Now, how you do that? Well, you got to figure it out on your own. But yeah, that's what I would do. And
okay, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, basically, that's what I did because I have all my money invested in some online broker that I can easily liquidate the financial assets, and invested maybe at a later stage in property in some emerging market. Do you think that's a smart idea? Because there's a higher yield in emerging markets on property.
Well, ultimately, it doesn't matter where you invest. All that matters is return on investment. Okay, that's all that matters. ROI. And so if the ROI is decent, sure. Look, I think that investing here in Ukraine, in Kharkov, is a good idea for me, because see, here all of the properties, there are very few, if any, mortgage loans, and because of that, the prices are not overinflated. See, the reason that prices are so inflated in real estate, especially in the West, in the United States and Canada, is because of the mortgage market that allows people to charge through the nose, and people just take out a larger loan, and for them, their net expense is, maybe $100 more per month for an additional $40,000 in price. Okay, and so here in Ukraine, there's no mortgage market, and so the valuation of real estate is much more realistic, and more to the point, the return on investment is much higher. In the United States, you're lucky if you get like 4-6% return on investment of a rental property. Whereas here in Ukraine, I can consistently get 12 to 15% per year on any real estate investment. And so it's just worthwhile to invest here. And so at the end of the day, you have to be thinking of that. You're thinking of what's the best return on investment, and of course, how safe and secure that investment will be long term. I fully expect Kharkiv to be a part of Russia within the next 15 to 20 years. It might happen sooner, but definitely by the year 2040, it'll be part of Russia. But I know one thing, that when the Russians take over, they're not going to bomb the fuck out of it, okay? They're not going to destroy Kharkov. They're going to take it in one bite. And so the damage will be minimal, if any at all, and it'll be part of a stable, successful country. And so any real estate venture here, long term, is from my point of view, and what I've thought about it, is a very good investment. I think that Kharkov personally has a very good future. And so that's what you have to do in any kind of investment situation. You have to look at both the return on investment and what's going to happen over the next 10 to 20 years. Because ultimately what you want is to be owning some real estate that is producing an income rather, in a place where that's going to be either fundamentally stable or the changes are going to be very predictable and will not materially affect your income stream. So you see, that's what you have to be focused on. ROI and the stability, ROI number one, and the stability of the location where you purchase the rental property. Now that's if you buy rental property. I've been talking for this whole thing about precious metals and collectibles, including diamonds. And I take it that you agree with my analysis that those two inert assets might not be the best.
Yes. Okay, sure. Thanks a lot. And I also think that's a very valid point with the mortgage volume in first world countries. I didn't consider that before. Just one more thing before I leave out. I heard the discussion about wheat waffles, and I didn't actually watch the video, but just one reclaimer I'd like to make about his opinion is, I think, in terms of looks, I think there's one important thing to keep in mind, which is the halo effect. Which means that, you know, as a good-looking man, and if you take care of yourself, people are going to perceive you as more intelligent, more hardworking, more honorable, all of those things.
Yeah, that's very true.
I agree with you.
Yeah, that's very true. But also the same thing happens with guys who are really brainy. See, a guy who's like really brainy and shows it off, for instance, by the way that somebody speaks, you can tell pretty quickly how educated they are. And because of that, that also has another halo effect. And sometimes it's a halo effect that is more powerful than just merely being good looking. I mean, like, to give an example, look at David Beckham. He is a very, very handsome guy, but he opens his mouth and he has this weird pinched voice. He sounds like a fucking moron. And he has almost like the reverse halo effect. The more he talks, the dumber he comes across as, and the less attractive he is. Actually, I should have brought that up to wheat waffles, because I mean, it's notorious that people, when they hear David Beckham, the more they hear him, the more he sounds like an idiot. He's just, he's just good looking. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's my thinking. Fun. Oh, well. Right. Anyway, thanks for being on, Lucas. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Take
care. Hey, Daniel, how's it going?
Doing well. How about you?
I can barely hear you, Daniel. Why don't you bring your microphone closer to you and stop rubbing it against whatever it is you're rubbing, because like we can all hear it.
Okay. You hear me now?
Yeah, a little bit louder, please. What's up? What's on your mind, man?
So actually I joined the Patreon around like a few days ago.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask a question about the last webinar you had.
Sure.
So I'm from Australia, and I remember in one of the slides you had where you mentioned it as like one of the countries that are kind of like a no-go sort of place. But I didn't really have a chance to hear you elaborate on what your thoughts are.
Well, it seems expensive. It seems that it's heading towards some sort of like weird totalitarianism. I mean, I don't know the internal politicking of all the different Australian states, and I do understand that Australia is a lot like the United States in the sense that each individual Australian state has more autonomy as to how it's run, and therefore there are some states that are more restrictive insofar as the COVID-19 situation than others. But be that as it may, it seems overall that Australia is very restrictive, and it seems that there's a lot of woke bullshit going on over there. It seems also very expensive. And so I question whether it's worthwhile as a place to settle long term. Ditto with New Zealand, also.
And that's kind of what I was.
I'm not too. I mean, I've never been to Australia or New Zealand. Okay, just get that out of the way. And so everything I have to go on insofar as those two countries are concerned is just what I hear from the media, or what I read about, or what I see, and it just doesn't seem to be like a very free place. You tell me, is it free or is it more totalitarian than not?
No, definitely. That's kind of why I'm asking these questions. It's been on my mind, and it's getting pretty crazy here. I'll tell you.
Well, I've noticed that the rich countries are going nuts. The poor countries, they're like, relax. And see, ultimately, this is the truth. Poor people want to go to rich countries so that the rich country will support them. Rich people want to go to poor countries, or not necessarily rich people, but better off people or more educated people want to go to poor countries because their money goes further. I'm here in Ukraine. This is a poor country. My personal expenses, I have a 60 square meter apartment, 60 square meter office, which is a bit of a nightmare right now, but take my word for it. I have a 175 square meter apartment with a family, and all of my expenses and everything. I mean, I'm renting both properties, by the way, because it's just financially more sensible than to purchase them for various reasons that I won't get into. And I know it's paradoxical that I own property that I rent out, but where I live, I rent, and I'll explain that in just a moment, but it's financially sensible. But the point that I want to make is that, see, all of my expenses all in, I don't spend more than $2,500 a month. Yeah. And that's all in. And I live exceedingly well here in Ukraine. I live a lifestyle that in the United States, in a not expensive coastal city, but just like an average city in outside of the coastal elite cities, would cost me at least $6,000, $7,000 a month, at least. Okay, and so yeah, it's just cheaper. That's why if you have a high earning potential, because you've got brains, you've got something that people want, and you can work remotely, then the smart thing is to move to a poor country. Like, in Asia, for instance, like Vietnam or Thailand. Unfortunately, Thailand has that reputation that if you move to Thailand and you're an expat, you're basically a sex tourist, right? But if you get over that, yeah, Thailand, Vietnam, I don't know, the other countries there, not Singapore. Singapore is incredibly expensive. But if you move to, like, say, Vietnam, which is a poor country, but it has a lot of good things going for it. And as I understand it, again, I've never been there, but I understand that the people are very, very nice.
I actually lived there for a few months.
Oh, really? How was it?
It's dirt cheap.
Yeah. Okay. Then you know.
It's really, really, it's a really nice place, and your money would be far there. Really.
I can hear you keep touching your microphone or rubbing it against something.
Oh, it's
hello.
1 second.
Hello. Hello.
You hear me?
Very, very far away.
How about now?
Not really helping.
But yeah, you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you better. So what's the question you have?
Yeah, so I wanted to say, you did mention Ukraine and like those sort of countries. Do you think like they'd be impacted a lot, and their quality of life would be impacted a lot in some sort of severe economic
No.
scenario?
No. If things go tits up worldwide, the poor countries are going to make out the best because they're already poor.
Yeah.
So, that's the bottom line. See, I mean, if you don't have much and things go into shit, well, you're going to be pretty much the same. It's the rich countries. That's where they're going to have like a fucking freak out. In fact, I suspect that a lot of the lockdown hysteria and all the crazy shit that the political leadership is doing in Australia and the United States, Canada, it's just fucking gone insane. I think all of that is because of a panic of the leadership that they know that things are going south really fast and they don't know what to do. And they're just trying to lock down everything so as to prevent this financial disaster. That's the vibe that I'm getting. I could be wrong. I'm often wrong, but that's the vibe I'm getting. You know what I'm saying? That it's out of desperation and panic that they're doing all this stupid shit. Whereas in poor countries, because they're already shitholes, they don't worry. They take it easy.
They're red pilled already.
Exactly. See what I'm saying?
And you can really, like, especially here, you can really feel like the pressure. You can feel the pressure going up. Like it's so noticeable.
Like,
like the
how do you know?
complacency is
How do you notice it?
Have you seen the ad that they released? Oh my god.
No. What ad? What are you talking about?
The Australian government, they released this COVID vaccination ad. It's
Yeah.
actually ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'll send it over to you, but you won't believe it. You won't believe it. It's such
Okay.
fear mongering.
Fear mongering. Yeah. Our old friend Fear and you and me. Yeah. I know that story. Anyway, Daniel, great talking to you, man. Take it easy. I'm
I
glad
wanted
you're
to
on
ask
board.
one more quick question. Like,
Sure.
what are you planning to do with when Russia takes over? What's your plan?
Nothing.
Just
Nothing
chill?
at all. Yeah, just chill. Because
Okay.
Russia. Because look, the Ukrainian government fucked up huge. They fucked up, and now that with Nord Stream 2, they're going to lose roughly 18% of their government budget, because they got 18% of their government budget was financed by the fees that would charge for the use of their pipelines. And so now that Nord Stream 2 is opening up, no more fees. And the contracts are still running for a couple more years, but those contracts end, I think, in 2023, around there. Certainly by 2025, it'll be gone. And after that, they're fucked. They're not going to have money for a lot of social services. More corruption is going to arise. Ukraine is going to go the way of the dodo. Okay, and you got to keep in mind this area where I'm living in, of Eastern Ukraine, Donetsk, Lugansk, right? All of this historically has been a part of Russia, not Ukraine. Okay. The historical Ukraine includes Dnipropetrovsk, or what's called Dnipro now, everything on the Dnieper River, Kiev, and everything up to Ivano-Frankivsk. But Lvov has been sometimes Polish, sometimes Ukrainian, because it's in that no man's land between the two. Odessa, yeah. But Crimea and what is currently considered the south and east of Ukraine historically was Russian. And it was only in 1954 that Nikita Khrushchev passed all this over to Ukraine during the Soviet period. And it was really like a cosmetic thing, an administrative thing, because all the people here are Russian. They are ethnic Russians, okay? And so when they take over, when the Russians take over, they're not going to destroy anything. That would be crazy, because they'd be killing their brothers. See? So yeah, and like I said, I've said this before. I live here in Kharkiv, literally a stone's throw away. Okay, or well, if you can throw a stone 40 kilometers, that's all I live. 40 kilometers for Americans, that's roughly 25 miles. That's how far away I live from the Russian border. They can roll up this whole fucking city in about an afternoon. Okay, it would be, and without a shot fired, because the people here are pro-Russian. The people all over Eastern Ukraine and Southeastern Ukraine are pro-Russian. So, yeah, that's what I think is going to happen, man. It's no big deal. And it's the Ukrainians' fault. They fucked up. They didn't make nice with Russia. They should have, but they had this ambition that they wanted to join the European Union and NATO. And they got suckered by European and American promises that when push came to shove, they backed out. And they left Ukraine high and dry. And now they're paying for it, man. Yep, that's life. Anyway, Daniel, great talking to you, man. And enjoy being a member. Hey, Mo, how's it going?
Hi, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's on your mind, man?
Wow, I just really want to say I love your content, and yeah, I have been listening to almost about a year, and yeah, just
Thank you.
still
Thank
trying
you
to
very
go
much.
through everything. It's really respect your stuff. One of the greatest channels.
Oh, that's very
For
kind
real.
of you. That's very, very kind of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Like I've said
You're
before,
welcome.
like what I want to do is give good value for money, because there are some channels who have a Patreon that it's basically just, please give me money, please give me money. And I figured that the kind of channel that I want to have is I will give you extra content and as good a content as I can possibly make. And you pay me a fee, and it's a very transactional relationship. Transactional in the sense of, you pay, I deliver. If I don't deliver, don't pay, but not like, please give me money. I don't want to be begging. I much prefer to have this situation whereby I'm earning your payment. And that feels just much more honest and straightforward. And I very much like it. And it's a lot of fun, because a lot of times, like in these webinars, I get to think through my ideas about different things, because you always learn more when you teach something or when you try to explain something than when you hear it from somebody else. And so what's happened to me with these webinars is that a lot of times I have an idea about something and I start thinking about it and structuring it so I can explain it to people and I understand it better myself. Because I've always been leery of collectibles and stuff like that, but I didn't have an organized argument against them until I started thinking about it for this webinar. And so that's why for me, it's incredibly satisfying. And I hope for you, it gives you some good ideas that you can work with and help improve your life. So yeah, that's, sorry about this rant. But anyway, go ahead. What's on your mind, man?
Okay. I got 4 questions. First one is about you've been talking about how Russia and the Chinese are working together, and then they're forming a bond. But all I hear from the Western media and it's the NATO's they're getting Korea, Japan on their side, Vietnam and Australia, and all that G7, all these countries try to contain China and contain Russia. And you probably the only channel or source that I, from the internet that are really talking about when Russia and China get together, it's gonna be the I don't know how do I say that, dominant. Yeah.
Together. It's already happened.
So I know, but what all I hear from media is like they are banning they're going to shut down, they shut down Huawei, and then they are not going to sell semiconductor to China, and then
So what's your question?
they're trying everything, they're throwing everything. My question. My question is, why do you think Russia and China together can overcome the rest of the world? Because altogether,
it's not the rest of the world. Okay, you have to understand who's at play here. See, it's the Americans and the European neoliberals who don't have a vested interest in Russia or China, which is not all the Europeans. See, because like for instance, the Germans and the French, they want to make nice with Russia because they have their own particular interests that would benefit if they make nice with Russia. Now, the Americans there are some factions in the United States that want to have like a fight with Russia or have an antagonistic relationship with Russia. There are even some crazies who want a war with Russia, right? Whereas there are other factions of the American administration that want to quote unquote confront China. And so they want to calm down the situation with Russia so they can pivot and focus more on China. But be that as it may, see, it's not the whole world against Russia, China. There are a lot of different players who are happy to align with Russia, China. For instance, Germany and France. It is to their financial benefit to have good, strong, close relationships with Russia and China and oppose the United States. For instance, the United States did not want Nord Stream 2 to open because it wanted to keep Ukraine happy and therefore Ukraine strong enough to present a challenge to the Russians. They also don't want Nord Stream because if Nord Stream pipeline goes operational, then American natural gas becomes uneconomic for the Germans because Nord Stream 2 would make it very cheap to ship Russian gas to Germany. It was direct pipeline. But the Germans insisted because the Germans realized that it's to their benefit to have natural gas coming from Russia. And also the Greens in Germany, idiots that they are, have shut down all of the nuclear power plants in Germany. And so because of that, the Germans are more dependent on natural gas than ever before. And so they need cheap natural gas, and they can get that cheap natural gas from Russia. And therefore, the Germans are on the Russian side and the Chinese side, because the Russians and the Chinese have openly declared that they are each other's primary partner. This is a key thing that happened just a couple of weeks ago, that they announced that they are going to continue to negotiate to have an ever-increasing alliance, and that at this time, they are each other's priority partner. That is, the interests of the Russians are the most important thing for the Chinese, and the interests of the Chinese are the most important thing for the Russians. They are in all but name allied, okay? And the Germans and the French want to be nice with them. The Iranians are slowly but surely going into the orbit of the Chinese and the Russians. A lot of different countries in Asia are more allied to the Chinese than to the American alliance. In the Pacific, the only strong ally that the United States has is Japan and maybe the Philippines. Maybe. Okay? But the other countries in Asia, you're Asian, right? Well,
Yeah, I'm Asian. I'm Chinese. I'm from Hong Kong.
yeah. I mean, China just gobbled up Hong Kong. Hong Kong is now becoming assimilated Borg-like, right? You tell me. I mean, you're there, so you can tell me better than anybody. Is it true? Are they having real problems assimilating Hong Kong?
I'm not in Hong Kong, but I'm in the mainland, actually.
Okay. So look, the Chinese are winning the geopolitical game, okay? The Chinese have been, they've been courting, trying to seduce the Russians for years, for 20 years. And the Russians, for 20 years, well, 15 years really, they have tried to make friends with the Europeans and the Americans. But finally, with the 2014 Maidan color revolution that was backed by the Americans and the Europeans, the Russians realized that the Americans and Europeans are the enemy. And that's why the Russians turned to the Chinese. And the Chinese were waiting there with open arms. The Chinese realized the strategic value of Russia. Russia has advanced weapons technology. Russia has a lot of computer technology that is independent of Western technology that could be very useful for the Chinese. And not to mention the fact that Russia is the repository of more natural resources than any other country on earth, including China. And so they realized the value of Russia. The Europeans and the Americans denigrated Russia. So it's to the benefit of the Russians to be more closely allied to the Chinese. It's more to the Chinese benefit to be more closely allied to Russia. And so they win. And the only people who are on the side of the Americans in Asia are the Japanese, full on, and maybe the Philippines. Yeah. And in Europe, the NATO alliance, it wants to, quote unquote, confront Russia. But there are these two key NATO players, Germany and France, that really don't want to antagonize Russia because it's not to their benefit. And so, the Russians and the Chinese are winning,
But don't you think sorry to cut you off, but don't you think the US and Japan has most of the cutting edge technology in the world, like the latest stuff?
Numbers win. Bottom line, numbers always win.
And what do you
I
think?
I bet that you could beat me up. I bet that you're stronger than me, right? But if I show up with a gang of 20 guys, it doesn't matter how strong you are. I'm going to beat you because I have more numbers. Okay. The Americans can't field a military that could realistically challenge the Chinese. If the Chinese decide to invade Taiwan, rather, nobody can stop them. If they just make up their minds, we're going to invade Taiwan, the Americans and the Japanese cannot stop them. And the Japanese recently said that a Chinese invasion of Taiwan would be an existential threat to them and that they would defend Taiwan. Well, that might be true, but they wouldn't win because the Chinese have more numbers. It's simple as that. It's not more complicated than that. They have more numbers. And remember, the Chinese and the Russians during the 1990s, they ironed out all of their border disputes. They don't have any border disputes. They don't have any problem militarily with one another. Therefore,
Yeah.
they don't have to have troops facing each other across their mutual border, which is I do believe it's the longest border in the world. They don't have
Yes, it is.
soldiers facing one another because they don't need them, because they've ironed out their difficulties. And on top of that, the Chinese have gone out of their way to make friends with the Russians. And so ultimately, the Chinese can apply all of their military force to Taiwan. And what's the Japanese or the Americans going to do about that? Fucking nothing. They can't. They don't have the troops, because numbers win. Remember that. It's all about the numbers. And that's a fact. I mean, look, I think that the Chinese are fairly smart. I mean, they have this itch about Taiwan, but I think that they're fairly smart, and I think that they're going to hold off and realize, let's just sit and wait. Let's see what happens with America, because they see America disintegrating right before their eyes. They're not stupid. And so I think that they're going to be thinking, let's wait around, see what happens in America, how far they disintegrate. And when America is really weak, when America has a lot of internal divisions, then they can make their move on Taiwan. When shit is just exploding in America, when there's like actual fighting in the streets in America, that's when the Chinese are going to make their move on Taiwan. Yeah, of course, when America is distracted. If I were the Chinese leader, that's what I would do. Tell me if you disagree.
I agree. But I don't think the Chinese really need to go to war with Taiwan, because they can just buy them off, like just buy the politician, and then they can get control of the country. I mean, the media is already like half of the media are already sold to the Chinese. So, and
you would know that better than me. I can't give an opinion about that, but I can give an opinion about the macro view. And from a macro perspective, it's the Chinese are winning the game. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Anything else, Memo?
I didn't feel this way until I listened to your channel, actually. But which is okay. I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you.
I am all about pragmatism. Okay. I'm always about facing reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. Do you know what I wish? That in the world, it was all like rainbows and unicorns, and we would all like work at the thing that most satisfies us and go home, and we would have like this gorgeous 10 out of 10 ready to just fuck our brains out. That's what I wish were the case in the world, but it's not the case. You got to look at the world as it actually is. And the way things are geopolitically speaking, the Chinese are winning. They're winning, and they're going to continue to win. And the Americans are just all kinds of wishful thinking. They say that, China's suffering in the middle income trap. China and Russia's alliance is not real. This, that. It's just fucking wishful thinking. Do you know why?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, what matters is self-confidence. The Chinese feel like they're winning. And a lot of times when you feel like you're winning, you are winning. Okay? It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. Whereas the countries in the West, especially America, they feel like they're falling apart because they are falling apart. Okay? And that difference in the degree of self-confidence of these two powers is why the Chinese are winning. Ultimately, it's not an issue. I mean, it is an issue of numbers, but it's that spirit of like, we are fucking winning. Okay? The Chinese have that sense. The Americans have this sense that we're losing and that we're desperately trying to hold on to what we once had. That's the vibe I'm getting, man.
Coach.
Yep.
May I ask my second question?
Sure, finally.
Okay. Do you think this is better for the world, or do you think this is good for mankind and everything?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
No, nobody can know.
All right. Yep. Okay. Can I ask you something like a little bit more personal?
Last one, because we got to give an opportunity for Constantine, who's been waiting patiently. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just quickly. By how do I say this? Like from your video, I noticed you probably got married where in your early 40s, right?
Yep.
And Do you think it's harder to shit? This is embarrassing. Is it harder to fall in love when you're older? Because
Yeah, it is, because you when you're older, you don't have as many illusions. Okay.
so
Because
what
you've
do you
been
do,
around
man? Like,
longer.
how do you pick your? How did you go through that
You have to have like a common goal. That's the most important thing. See, in any romantic relationship, yeah, you got to love each other, blah, blah. But what's really important is that you have a common goal. And what's important, and I'll tell you from experience, that you have to articulate clearly what is the objective that you both have. See, the objective of being in a relationship is not the relationship. The objective of the relationship is to achieve a common goal. Think of it like this. Suppose you have a very good friend, okay? And you
Mhm.
know you get along great with him. And you say to him, let's start a business together. And your goal is not to do a business, it's just to be in partnership with him. Well, that partnership is going to fail. But if you find a business opportunity and you say, to your friend, hey, I have this business opportunity and we could become partners and pursue this business opportunity, that's different. A lot of relationships in the West see the relationship as an end in itself, which is a huge mistake. A romantic relationship is a means to achieve a common goal. The common goal is a family. But many people, especially in the West, view the relationship as the end in itself when it's only the means to the end.
Mhm.
It's the tool to achieve the end. And the end is a happy and loving family that will take care of you and nurture you. Nurture you, nurture your wife, nurture your children. See? That's the goal. And you have to clearly articulate this, or else the relationship is doomed to failure. See? And these relationships where they get married just to be married and they don't have any children and they support one another, but they don't have a common goal. And they start to analyze the relationship obsessively, and eventually the relationship falls apart. Yeah, it's just like a partnership between you and a friend. You become partners, business partners, but you don't actually pursue a business. See? That
Mhm.
it's the same thing. A marriage, a romantic relationship, is a partnership to achieve a goal. You have to articulate that goal. It's not an end in itself. And Western couples, they fail because of that. They view the relationship as the end in itself and not as the means to an end. Yeah. Okay, Mo.
Right.
Thanks for being on. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank
Take it
you,
easy.
Coach.
Hey, Constantine, how's it going?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's on your mind, man?
Well, the first thing is that I don't think combustion cars will decrease in production because of the Asian population.
Could be.
Electric cars are popular in Europe and in North America, but in Asia, I don't think that it will decrease.
I know. I can't give an opinion about that. It's not something I pay attention to tell you the truth.
And I don't know where I heard it, but Elon Musk has this like weird relationship with American government, and I think when
The money that they earn is basically income credit from the electric vehicles that they produce. I know. Yeah.
And I think when inflation will hit, I think Tesla will go bankrupt and it will close.
I don't know. I mean,
that's my thing.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's certainly overvalued. It's not $1 trillion company. It is absurd to think that Tesla has a valuation greater than the top, the other 9 top 10 automotive firms in the planet. That doesn't make any sense at all. And so, yeah, I agree that it's completely overvalued. Whether it will go bankrupt or not, I could not say.
Mm-hmm.
But that it's overvalued, not going to question it at all. On the contrary, totally agree. But I will also say that everybody who shorts Tesla always gets fucked over. I have never heard of a Tesla short making any money. They always get fucked over. Yeah, that I know too. Yeah. But anyway, so what question do you have, Constantine?
Well, I don't have a question, but because I live in Lithuania, I can tell you what Lukashenko is doing with the migrants in here.
Yeah, he's shipping them to Lithuania.
Yeah, yeah.
In by plane. Yeah, you guys on the webinar, you don't know this, but Lukashenko is flying in migrants from the Middle East, from Turkey, I think, and he's shipping them by foot to Lithuania to fuck over the EU. It's so fucking brilliant, man. That's funny. That is an epic troll. Yeah.
And right now, my government decided to build a wall like in World War I trenches with an iron bear wire.
Kilometers, 700 kilometers. They'll never build it. Okay, that's just absurd. They have to come to some agreement with Lukashenko and basically pay him off to stop fucking them over. They won't.
They won't. They have too much pride. They hate. I think my government hates more Putin or Russians and less than communism. They will accept communists rather than the Russians. That's their like.
Yeah, that's pretty damn funny, man. They're getting fucked over. That's so damn funny. You know, I mean, that's an epic troll. That's. I mean, whatever you think, that's fucking epic. Yeah.
And because I work as a paramedic, and yesterday at like 2 a.m. I went to the hospital to deliver a patient, and I saw like one African migrant and being in a hospital to check out and everything. It's so funny. I mean, migrants are getting the highest degree of healthcare in our country for free. Like, and they're getting better food than our like patients
your
in the
poor
hospital.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look. I mean, fucking morons, right?
But
Fucking
Lukashenko
No,
is brilliant.
Genius. Yeah. But the Lithuanian government, fucking morons.
Well, okay, that's it. I have no more further news.
Okay.
Bye.
Anyway, great talking to you. Take it easy. Thanks for being on, Konstantin. Hey, Alexa, how's it going?
Hey, Coach. Thanks for having me on. I took up your advice and decided to come here to Serbia to live for a couple of months and see if I can. And everything you said about Eastern Europe, even though we're kind of on the edge, is pretty much correct. So thank you.
No problem.
And I'd like to confirm Igor's comment about El Gublinos with hot women, because it's definitely true here. And
Really?
the basketball players being insults, definitely, yeah. It's
funny. That's funny.
yeah, and it's thankfully I was able to score a remote job back in Toronto with the Big Four, doing cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And my first question is whether or not you knew of any resources that would point me to how to build an international or remote business in technology.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, no fucking idea. I'm so sorry.
Cool. Thank you.
I just be blowing sunshine up your ass. Yeah. Anything
Thank you.
else, Alexa?
Yeah, my second question is kind of deals with women, I guess, and sometimes it's hard for me to talk about my life without coming across like I'm bragging, because for the standards here, I'm doing pretty well. So I was wondering if you could give any tips as to how to tone it down, but be honest at the same time.
Don't offer, only answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, because like if you come and say, "Oh, I'm a rich guy," you sound like an asshole. But if somebody asks, "Oh, like what do you do?" "Oh, I work in cyber, whatever," and I do okay. I'll always just play it down, okay? And they ask you how much money you make, you say, "Oh, I do okay." Don't say, "Oh, I earn $20,000 a month" or some shit like that, because then you sound like an asshole. But if you just say, also see, a key issue is a lot of times if you don't give a precise answer and just try to shrug off the question, people will imagine whatever, okay?
Right.
And sometimes it'll be to your benefit. And of course, if you just shrug off the answer, you'll never come across as an arrogant shit. You see?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my suggestion. Okay?
Thank you. Thanks
No
so
problem.
much. Okay.
Take it easy.
You too, Coach.
Okay, guys, I'm going to call it a stream because we've been going on to almost 3 hours. And this is kind of like, to tell you the truth, it's kind of my limit. It's getting dark here, and it's time for me to get home and get dinner. So yeah, but I hope that this helped, and I hope that this can give you some good ideas as to how to navigate the coming financial apocalypse, man, because it looks like that all over the fucking place. But who knows what'll happen, It's like a fucking soap opera, and every week there's something new. So until next time, thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch you next week. Take it easy, guys.